Good evening, Vacaville. This is the City Council meeting dated April 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. May I have a roll call?
Council Agency Authority Member Stockton.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wiley. Here. Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Ritchie. Mayor Chair Carly.
Here.
Here.
Here. I figured it'd be close. All right. If you're able, will you please rise for a moment of silence? Councilmember Stockton, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we have our Assistant City Manager, Georgianne Mager-Smith, at the helm. Do we have any changes in tonight's agenda?
We do not, Mayor.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda? Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. And the approval of the minutes for the April 9th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes?
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Aye. And tonight we actually have several presentations. And so what I'd like to do is get some of this organized. The first one is going to recognize Bioville USA. It's a presentation and a proclamation. And just for the audience and those watching, it's really important to know what we have here in Vacaville. In 2020, the City of Vacaville, with the help from its many partners and industry professionals, launched the Biotechnology and Advanced Manufacturing Initiative. Many of us know that as the CBC. As far as what's coming up here, the initiative was developed to help the city attract more biomanufacturing companies to Vacaville and create not just good-paying jobs, but long-term careers for our residents and a future career track for our children. So I'd like to invite our Director of Economic Development Services, Don Burris, down to the podium, along with Matt Gardner, the Chairman of the Board for the California Biomanufacturing Center, the CBC. And with that, I want to start by reading the proclamation, and then I'm going to ask you both to share a few words. Whereas in 2018, the City of Vacaville reached out to the Solano College, the Solano Economic Development Corporation, life science consultants, and other stakeholders to discuss expanding the city's exciting life science industry. And in 2019, the city, in partnership with these stakeholders, developed a new strategy to grow biomanufacturing within our city. And also in 2020, the City of Vacaville launched its Biotechnology and Advanced Manufacturing Initiative to attract more biomanufacturing companies to our community of Vacaville, and supported the creation of the California Biomanufacturing Center, known as the CBC, a nonprofit organization supporting industry development and workforce and training. And whereas the CBC is supporting the city's effort to usher in the next era of growth and success for one of the largest clusters of biomanufacturing companies in the world. And whereas the CBC, in partnership with the City of Vacaville, Solano College, the filmmakers behind the movie Extraordinary Measures, and Mango Materials, is prepared to present at this year's Bioville 2024 event. And whereas Bioville 2024 is a 3-day event that celebrates the biotechnology and biomanufacturing community in Vacaville with a career fair, movie night, and an opportunity to tour the Solano College Biomanufacturing Training Center. And Bioville is an event that shows biotechnology can be fun and accessible by young and old, and encourages all to venture into Bioville and explore biotechnology. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John Carly, Mayor of the City of Vacaville, and on behalf of the Vacaville City Council, do hereby proclaim April 24 through 26, 2024, Bioville USA. Congratulations. Thank you so much. you both to share a few words. I know you cut it short, but I wanted everyone to hear the whole thing.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. This has been a long time coming. We've been really excited to be able to do this event. As some of you may remember, when we launched the initiative and put the strategy together, we had said that we were going to try to do 2 community events each year and 1 community event to really involve the community. And again, as you said, let everyone understand that the life sciences can be fun and accessible. And then the second event, we were hoping to be able to host a major conference in Vacaville as well. And I'll let Matt address that in his comments. But it's great that we're through the pandemic and we're actually able to do Bioville. And as corny as it may sound to some people, it's crazy fun for us because now we get to showcase our city in a whole different light and in a whole different way. And hoping maybe next year we can involve the college a little bit more. And I'm going to put Councilmember Professor Silva on the spot here. I know that in his summer boot camps, they do these really fun experiments where they create a product that is fluorescent and glows in the dark. And I think any kid or adult would think that's a lot of fun to do in the lab. So thank you all for renaming our city for the next 3 days. And hopefully we'll have more fun with this next year.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and council members, excuse me, I think just to quibble with my colleague for a moment, Mike is hosting tomorrow and a tour on Friday. So if we could ask him to do a little bit more, it would be host the whole thing. So thank you, Mike. It's really good work on your part. We go back a long way in the thought process for this. In fact, I was just looking at the original memo where Bioville was mentioned for the first time between Don and Aaron and I, and it was in 2019. And so we were prepared to kick off CBC with initiatives like this and involving outreach and explaining why biotech is good to have in your backyard and the great things that it does. And a little thing got in the way and took us on a sidetrack for a few years. We're really excited to be pulling this together over the next few days. We have hundreds of people signed up from the community to come to events between tomorrow and Friday. And we just couldn't be prouder that the biotech industry has gotten together and brought this into the community. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Yes, absolutely. You have the certificate. You come down there and then we can all stand. I have attended his experiments. That's a fantastic job.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have had the pleasure of sitting in Professor Silva's classroom, and he commands the students. I didn't see him commanding the college students, but those who came from the schools really enjoyed his interaction, and so I was very impressed, and it's your passion, and I can see it. So.
And I did pass you, so.
Yes.
You're okay.
All right, thank you. I'm glad to know that I passed. The next presentation and proclamation is to recognize Small Business Month. And our staff contact is our newest, one of our newer employees, our Economic Development Manager, Barbara Carr. What I'd like to do before having her come up is just share a few points to this month and also the proclamation. Each year at this time, the city is honored to recognize the hard work and struggles of small business owners. And this evening, the city would like to honor them for their passion, determination, and sometimes sacrifices they make to share their products and services within our community. And just a few facts, if you weren't aware, there's over 33.3 million small businesses in the United States. Those small businesses employ nearly 62 million employees and are responsible for over 63% of the net new jobs created from 2000 and 2024. It's significant what small businesses do, and they certainly do a lot in our community. Small businesses employ around 46% of the employees in the private sector in our country, and over 80% of all businesses have less than 10 employees. So doing the simple math, you realize this country is run on small business. It really is. It's clear that small businesses are truly the backbone of the American economy and our community. And tonight we have a presentation and a proclamation to recognize Small Business Month. And we invite Visit Vacaville, Vacaville Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Vacaville to the podium, and also our Economic Development Manager, Barbara Carr, to please come down here. And before you share a few words, I want to go ahead and read the proclamation, but come on down here. This time I'm going to put on my glasses, make it a little bit easier. I struggled the last one. Whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30, I'm going to skip this part because I just read it to you. Whereas along with the advocacy groups such as the Solano Napa Small Business Development Center, the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce, Visit Vacaville, the Downtown Vacaville Business Improvement District, and the public and private organizations across the country which have endorsed Small Business Month, today the City of Vacaville celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions you all make to our community and our economy. Whereas it is important to support our city's valued small businesses which create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. Now therefore be it resolved that I, John Carley, Mayor of the City of Vacaville, and on behalf of the Vacaville City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2024 Small Business Month. Congratulations for all your support and all that you do in our community. So. I'm going to come down here first.
I promise I'll keep it short.
Come over here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council members, and thank you, Assistant City Manager Georgianne. Really appreciate the opportunity to stand in front of you. As a person who once owned a small business, I can appreciate the hard work that goes into creating a thriving economy, and we don't do it on our own as Economic Development Department. We do it with our partners. For me, there's been such an opportunity to be welcomed into the community by the Downtown Vacaville and the Vacaville Chamber. They've been so supportive of the work that we do. And we, of course, need these partners as we move forward in the work that we do in our community and support a thriving community. So thank you so much for supporting them and recognizing the hard work that they do each and every day. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Say a couple things. I'm Debbie Egidio. I'm the president of the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce. And I just really want to say thank you for recognizing what small businesses mean to our community. Our local stats mirror the national stats. Almost 86% of our businesses in Vacaville are 9 or fewer employees. And on the city's site right now, that's 2,862 businesses. So that's a lot of our population that serves not just those employees, but our big businesses when they go out to lunch, when they do their services, where they work. Small business is the backbone of our city. And it started as this is Small Business Week next week, National Small Business Week, and the partners have put quite a few activities together from events like a mixer, music in the town square, to training programs by SBDC every day at noon. They have a virtual training program designed just for small businesses. We also are putting some marketing to bring some awareness to the community, both on the radio and in newspaper and social media campaigns. So I just mainly want to say thank you for this recognition for our businesses. It's important to them and important to know they're appreciated. Thanks.
I guess I need to speak. Thanks, Debbie. Well, as a small business owner myself and new to my position, I know what it takes to run a small business, and I appreciate Vacaville. I appreciate that all you do for our small businesses, and I am proud to say that I can help them as I work in the business world downtown myself, and appreciate everything that you all do for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. Thank you very much. And thank you, Debbie, for all that you do with the chamber. It does not go unnoticed, all the work that you do behind the scenes. So thank you very much. All right, next is the presentation and proclamation for National Building Safety Month. And with that, our Community Development Director, Aaron Morris, will be representing the city on this particular proclamation. I'm going to go ahead and read this. Whereas the City of Vacaville is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depend on the safety and essential role of our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike, and our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of our buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, and territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. The theme for Building Safety Month is 2024, It Starts With You. It encourages us all to raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John Carley, Mayor on behalf of the Vacaville City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2024 National Building Safety Month. Congratulations. Thank you for all your hard work.
I just have a very few words, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I want to thank you all for this proclamation. Chief Building Official Aleti Stun would be here this evening, standing right here. However, she's at the California Building Officials Conference. It's an annual event, upskilling, making connections, et cetera. I just wanted to say on behalf of her and her team, we have a very small and mighty building division, a total of 8 staff, essentially, from the counter to the field to the plan review. Good news is we just hired an internal plan reviewer, like an actual plan check engineer, and so we're really starting to be able to turn things in the right direction. The last thing I just want to say is that we were looking a little bit quiet, and I can just tell you all that the uptick in building permit activity is starting, and it's starting to look a lot like a normal spring here in Vacaville. So I expect my small team of 8 staff to be incredibly busy, along with our partners in the other departments, ensuring safe buildings 24/7. So thank you again for this recognition. It means a lot to my team.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, and thank you to all your staff. So congratulations. And we have one additional one, and it's Older Americans Month proclamation. And our internal staff representative is Elizabeth Crisante, our Parks and Recreation Manager. I'm going to read this, and then I'll ask you to respond and just share a few words. Whereas the City of Vacaville recognizes the increasing growth of the aging population and is committed to providing needed services and opportunities for residents of all ages to participate in community life. And Vacaville is home to more than 20,000 citizens aged 60 or older who are part of a growing population with evolving needs that contribute to the social and economic fabric of our community. And whereas the City of Vacaville strives to equitably serve residents of all ages, abilities, levels of income, race, ethnicities, and other backgrounds, and our community can provide recognition and respect by improving the quality of life for older Americans by increasing their opportunities to remain active and engaged in community life, providing individualized services and support systems to maintain the dignity, independence, and self-determination of older Americans as they age. Combating ageist attitudes by honoring their past, present, and future contributions. And whereas the McBride Senior Center was founded in 1967 and serves the aging population where they are at, while building the path to inclusiveness and the changing needs of residents as they age. And whereas in our community, the McBride Senior Center has proven to be an essential resource dedicated to enhancing the overall quality of life of our older citizens by creating a safe environment that promotes health education and continued learning opportunities, encourages independent living, and serves as a conduit to other local age-friendly services and resources. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John Carley, Mayor on behalf of the Vacaville City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2024 Older Americans Month in the city of Vacaville and support initiatives and opportunities to be an age-friendly community by encouraging and promoting policies and projects which are beneficial to the healthy and active aging. So thank you and congratulations.
Good evening, Mayor Carley and City Council members. On behalf of McBride Senior Center and our Active Aging Program, I am happy to accept this proclamation. As you all know, older adult programming was the last to start up again post-COVID, and although it's taken some time, we are finally seeing steady active participation in many of our programs. We continue to provide a variety of social-based activities that appeal to the varying micro-populations of seniors that we have visiting McBride. Our day trips, monthly events, fitness classes, and coffee socials continue to be heavily attended, and we also remain a hub for social services as we connect older adults to tax help, congregate meals, grief support, legal aid, and in-home care assistance, just to name a few. We are rolling out a new membership model this July that includes registration incentives that will simultaneously subsidize many of our programs that we offer at no cost. And lastly, it does happen to be National Volunteer Week, so I would be remiss in not acknowledging the workforce of volunteers we have that keep our programs running. They are our backbone. Now more than ever, people are living longer, so by the year 2030, it is anticipated that 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 65. It is imperative that we continue to keep active aging in the spotlight and provide the highest level of quality programs and services to the older adult population. Thank you again for acknowledging May as Older Americans Month.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and to the entire staff in our city and all the coordination and efforts to really make Vacaville that place where those that are served at the senior center and the entire community feel that they're part of community and there's a social connection that keeps you young, and just keep creating those unique programs. So thank you and congratulations.
We're trying.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and we'll go ahead and move on to our consent calendar. Any member of the public or member of the council wishing to pull an item, there's 4 items on tonight's consent calendar. Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve consent calendar. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is business from the floor. This is the time where the public can address the council on any item that's not on the agenda tonight, but that is within our jurisdiction. And anyone wishing to come forward, please. You have 3 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. I just wanted to share that a third company has applied to put a battery storage in Vacaville. It's a 100 megawatt system, and the location is just outside the city limits on Quinn Road. It's very close to the Menard Energy battery storage site that was entertained earlier this year and was voted down. It shares all the same issues with the proximity to homes that Menard Energy had. As of right now, their application's on hold because this is county property and there's a moratorium in place. So any changes that they come up with during that moratorium, this application would have to be confined to whatever changes they implement. So it's kind of on hold right now. But I wanted to mention this because without a formal way to address battery storage companies, they're going to just keep coming. And this area is a magnet for them. We have a very large substation. It's going to happen. They're going to keep wanting to build in our area. And a moratorium would prevent developers from coming forward with their projects temporarily. And that would give the city time to do their own research and handle this influx of developers wanting to build. It also puts it on record so that if the city doesn't want a particular project, there's documentation that we're in a moratorium and they can bring that to the state level. And I wasn't kidding when I said that Vacaville could end up being the battery storage headquarters of California. It looks like it's trying to be very quickly. I'd like to see policies in place that protect our residents from the known hazards that these facilities are. And I feel a moratorium the timing is perfect, honestly, because the city hired the consultant to look into the issue, and that could kind of go hand in hand with the research the city could be doing. On a different note, I wanted to share that I recently watched the Strategic Development Committee meeting for SMUD, and they provided an update on their ESS Inc. iron flow system. They have the batteries installed right now. They're just getting their communication and software integrated, and they're expecting to train operators and have that online within the month. So that's pretty exciting news that there is other technologies that don't have hazards, and they're actually going to be working soon. They also had a speaker from the California Energy Commission on long-duration energy storage, and they brought up there's 5 different technologies in different phases of field demonstration. The technologies are zinc hybrid, vanadium redox flow, zinc bromide flow battery, iron flow battery, and iron air. None of these have the thermal runaway problems, and they're long duration, which mean they provide more than 4 hours. So some of them are providing up to 100 hours of power. And there are grant opportunities for cities to take advantage of if they want to do these kind of projects. So I think that's very valuable, and the city should take that into consideration going forward, because I know the city is looking at microgrids. Please vote yes on a moratorium. We need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, me again. In regards to the BESS application, absolutely everything the previous speaker just said. You know now a whole lot about them. They're dangerous, etc. They're unneeded in this area. They're just here because the government's providing money for them to be built. It's all profit driven. Once those facilities are no longer useful, we'll be stuck with the chemical waste. Now, California Forever. Last week, Mr. Fortney introduced himself to me and made it clear that he was unhappy with the fact that I keep talking about California Forever. And I wondered why that is. Well, I started looking over and I realized that Solano Together, the group that is attempting to oppose California Forever, had commissioned a poll, and they found that 70% of the county residents who are aware of California Forever very much oppose it. But that's the key. How many people had actually heard of it? They don't say. I suggest, or I assume, that the multi-billionaires of Silicon Valley have decided that their best opportunity to get their change in the county zoning through is by the voters not knowing very much about it, and hopefully they'll just mark it yes. As Senator Dodd said, this is just a very high-profit urban sprawl. And several times some of us have asked the city council to make a public statement in opposition to California Forever. And in not doing so, you make it more likely that people will be unaware of what the problems with this are, and that they will be more likely to vote in favor of it, even though it's entirely to the detriment of Solano County and the city of Vacaville. Silence is compliance, and that's all the billionaires of San Jose need. If you're quiet, the voters won't know, and they'll vote yes, and we'll lose our county.
Thank you.
I was very happy to see the presentations tonight, which just reinforces my opinion of Vacaville. It's a very well-run city, a model city. You really are. That's why I keep attending here. You set the example for other cities. Now, I have some meandering thoughts about this. The state wanting to take 3/4 of the water from Lake Berryessa. And I keep thinking, okay, on what basis? Since Solano County residents, you, me, have paid for it. We've maintained it. It's not been a burden upon the state of California. As a matter of fact, the state of California has been richly rewarded for our doing it with the expanded tax base we've given them. All of these people that set up businesses, all of these orchards that are created, all of these new housing developments, they are there because they believe that in a crisis there will be water to be backed up into their systems for their survival. And so the state of California is made off like a bandit. Now they're saying, well, for the good of the state of California and for some fish in the Delta, let's take 3/4 of that water because, well, it's for the good of the whole state. And after all, the rains come down, it's our rains. You just happen to gather it. Yeah, the very rains that would have ended up in the ocean. We did happen to gather it. So, okay, let's follow this out then. They want to take the water. On what basis? Well, it seems to me that it's a Fifth Amendment taking. We're going to take your water for the benefit of the whole community. If that's the case, and if the state of California follows the state or the United States Constitution like the state of California Constitution says it does, then every person that has ever paid 1 cent into putting that water into that reservoir is going to be paid by the state for compensation. So all the years we paid into it, okay, state of California, give us money in our pocket. Or otherwise, it's a Fifth Amendment abridgment. Just some random thoughts.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I may have made a procedural error. I understand that if something's in the consent calendar, it's still coming up, but it's not being pulled to be given extra time. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor? Can I ask that question?
Just ask, yeah, what's the question again?
If something is listed, item 6A alpha,
Right.
if it's on the consent calendar and I don't ask you to pull it, we're still going to address it, correct?
It's already been voted on.
But I can't talk, I'll talk about it now then.
Sure you can.
Since it's open comment.
It's already been on the agenda. So you go ahead with your 3 minutes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I agree with Sarah, and I'm impressed by her presentation. I also mentioned that the liquid sodium battery technology is still on the table. It's a little farther behind in development at what she described, and heartily support that. And the same thing with the California Forever comments. You know, we've been down that road several times. I had a little experience with real estate over my lifetime, you know, including residential, commercial, and farm property. And I'd like to address commercial property. Having purchased and sold such, we're going to be talking about item 6 alpha. When negotiating those on behalf of the citizens' assets, I never recommend entering into an exclusive negotiation. It's always more valuable to a neighbor if they wish to expand. Therefore, they're willing to pay more for the property than, say, somebody else. But when you eliminate competition for said property, and real estate is one of those fixed commodities that offers us huge benefit to the community. Also, I've seen that the state and the city have done a lot of foot shuffling and ring-ringing over high-density housing. The property I'm referring to is over on Bush Street. I don't care who buys it. I just want to get top dollar for it. And that's a really good spot for high-density housing because shopping is right nearby and lasts meeting, I mentioned that as I get older, I've already got my route planned out down to Maya Market as a senior citizen. It's only 1 mile, I clocked it. So the same could be said for that wonderful piece of land there. You have access to downtown, you have access to Albertson, I think it's still called Albertsons up on the hill, as well as other services that people, we don't get them out of their cars. Okay, there's a piece of property people could live and not have to drive everywhere right there. So I hope that you will reconsider and not enter into any exclusive negotiations on any piece of property that the city owns on behalf of the citizens and taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Carly, City Council, and City staff. Lately, I've noticed that although more studies and information have been released on cannabis, some still hold a negative perception towards it, and I think I know why. Historical research proved that false information was pushed to the American citizens through social culture, news media, literature, and even motion pictures as early as the 1930s. With films like 1936 Reefer Madness pushing a narrative that cannabis was evil, comes from the devil, and leads to nowhere but tragedy. One scene went so far as to even portray a couple sharing a joint on a date night and it ending with him harming her before him jumping out the window to his end. Now, of course, we know these egregious depictions are wrong, but at the same time, they were still very effective. This false narrative around cannabis was largely pushed after the end of the Prohibition in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and made into legislation in 1971 with the War on Drugs Initiative. This gave our American culture a new era of fear, prejudice, and negative perception towards cannabis that still exists today. I mean, it wasn't too long that alcohol was the banned drug of its time and was demonized by almost everyone. Yet, the ending of Prohibition saw the start of many great industries pushing American culture into a new era. And we're now seeing the same pattern play out with cannabis. For example, recent data shows that an over 200% increase in customer visits of customers over the age of 62. This is mainly due to access to accurate information, social acceptance, and increased legislation. But more commonly, their reason for visiting a dispensary is to find a solution for their medical and holistic health challenges. Studies show that many customers turn to cannabis as an alternative when battling mental illnesses like PTSD, conditions like arthritis, and even chronic illnesses like cancer. We must remember that although cannabis is widely used recreationally, many customers are actual medical patients with disabilities and chronic illnesses that need these products to continue enjoying the quality of life that they deserve. Vacaville, let's not continue to let propaganda and misinformation divide us from the truth nor stop us from progressing as a city. Let's move on from the days in which we let our most vulnerable residents go without the essential help and services they need to live their lives in comfort and without pain. Deploying the approved cannabis program and putting a cannabis retail operation in Vacaville will not only see millions of dollars of tax revenue, dozens of jobs, and increase economic growth, but also provide easy, accessible solutions to those residents who otherwise would have none. Let's agree to put the Vacaville cannabis program on upcoming agendas and on the strategic plan for 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Good evening.
Bedtime, and I commute to the Bay Area, so I'll get up at 3 in the morning. Hi, council members. Good evening to the mayor. I'm against the best batteries also, but I'm here to talk about the Brown Street Park. I don't know if it's the right time about it or not, but I have a...
So there's going to be a discussion.
But I need to get home and get to bed.
It's going to be the very next discussion.
Okay.
So do you want to stick around for 10 more minutes?
If you want 10 more minutes.
All right. So why don't you just have a seat and stick around? It's the next item. Thank you. Anyone else? Well, actually, it's not the next item. Can we move it though?
If that's the desire of the council, you can move it up.
Any objections? No. Okay, so let's go ahead and, if we can, we're still open business from the floor, but we'd like to just rearrange it and and hear that one first, if we could.
First item on business.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Anyone else wishing to address the council on business from the floor? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close business from the floor. And we have no public hearings, and so we're going to move into our business. And so rearranging this, we have item 9C. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This first item is an update on the Brown Street Park project and the funding shortfall. We're bringing this to you tonight as we're planning to have a discussion of Measure M funding priorities and projects at the May 14th council meeting, and this project will be one of those. We have Brian McLean, our Public Works Director, and Emily Cantu, our Housing and Community Services Director, to present this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members. Tonight, I was going to start with a little background on the project. In January 2021, the council approved submittal of an application for a statewide park development and community revitalization program grant funds, SBP, we'll call it going forward grant. SBP is a statewide competitive program to create new parks and recreation opportunities in underserved areas. Developing the application and the amenities to be included in the project took place through quite a bit of community outreach. Outreach efforts included 6 community meetings, work with Channel 26, press release, KUIC, booth on Rocky Hill Trail. We worked with Markham Elementary School, the Police Department Youth Reach Program, the Vacaville Boys and Girls Club, and also reached out to Vibe Solano, as well as an online survey. So the application that ended up being submitted was for a city-owned parcel on Brown Street. It included a new park and a new community center. The map here shows the location of the park with a piece that's kind of carved out that's currently under negotiation with the Vacaville Boys and Girls Club. At the time, the site was also planned for a multi-purpose city facility where the Housing and Community Services Department could potentially move to, and it included space for nonprofits, other agencies, faith-based groups, community members could use shared meeting spaces and office spaces. That part of the project was not eligible to be part of the SBP application, so it was not included in the grant application, but was part of the plan at the time. The application was submitted in March of 2021. Fast forward to December of 2021, we heard back from the state, and the city successfully was awarded the competitive grant of $6.7 million that was requested at the time. So since that time, the activities around the project have included an additional neighborhood meeting, the site layout was finalized, environmental documentation began, an architect was engaged to work on design concepts, the documents needed to submit for project entitlements, working on project cost estimates, et cetera. At a point in time between then and now, it was determined that the multi-purpose facility would be removed from the phase 1 portion of the project and to be considered later as a future phase 2. That building was planned to be paid in part with city low and moderate income housing asset fund. There's an administrative allowance portion of those funds that can be used towards supporting staff in the administration of working on affordable housing programs that were being used at the time. When the facility was removed from the project and set for a phase 2, those funds could no longer weren't eligible and could no longer be used towards project costs. Conceptual designs were presented to the Parks and Recs Commission. Documents were prepared for project entitlement application. The cost estimate was updated. The entitlement application was recently submitted. And further, the cost estimate was further updated and that was based on current information and known trends. So real quick, included in the staff report, we've put the concept plans for you to just take a quick glance at this evening, not this morning, not that quick. This is the conceptual park plan, the amenities that were included and the application and are incorporated into this concept plan are the plaza, stage and seating area, splash pad, picnic shelters, playground and tot lot, a public art component. There are water fountains, park benches, lighting, walking and jogging trail, a fairly large play field, and a multi-purpose / futsal court. The community centers, the kind of the blue area in the center there, is a 2,500 square foot building with a professional grade kitchen, 500 square foot multi-purpose room, and outdoor patio. The indoor space is to provide educational and recreational programming and can also provide venue and rental space. This shows a concept of the floor plan of the community center. You can see the kitchen, classroom area. There's a locker storage and pantry in connection with the kitchen space, some office spaces, and then the outdoor patio. And this is the 3D massing concept of grayscale, what the building shape and size might look like.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I'll pick it up, Emily. At the April 9th, 2024 City Council meeting, Public Works staff provided City Council with details related to the construction cost inflation which has been impacting the city's CIP projects. For the California Department of General Services, the California Construction Cost Index inflation has seen a rise over the last 3 years. Prior to the pandemic, the preceding 5 years saw an average increase of approximately 3% in construction cost index value. With the onset of the pandemic, supply chain issues, and then the national rise in inflation, in 2021, we saw a tremendous spike up to 13.4%, followed by 9.3% in 2022 and 9.4% in 2023. Important to remember in these values is that they're cumulative, they're compounding on each other. We anticipate these inflationary figures to continue to rise. In fact, 2 days after that April 9th council meeting, the Department of Labor and Statistics reported another month-over-month rise in CPI, making March 2024 the third consecutive month of increase in inflationary figures. The current estimate for the Brown Street Park project is $18 million. This estimate is based on anticipating similar cost increases over the next 2.5 years and other construction project influencing factors, which I'll get into. Those other cost influencing factors derive from the removal of the multi-purpose facility use aspect that Emily spoke of. Because these project or that piece of that multi-purpose project was removed and pushed to a later phase, the loss of the ability to use the LIHAF funding to help offset these projects and these project elements incurred. Those project elements included masonry sound wall inclusion, splash pad, grading, underground utility connections, electrical and fire safety elements, emergency vehicle access roads, trash enclosures, stormwater treatments, gas and electric services, lighting, fences, environmental mitigation and monitoring. Essentially everything in the infrastructure that could have been shared by that funding was removed, and therefore this project ended up being burdened with that additional cost. I'm going to switch back to Emily.
So after subtracting the $6.7 million SPP grant funding, we are looking at about an $11.4 million funding gap as of now. However, staff has identified some potential funding sources if the city chose to want to access those funds through future city council actions at a future meeting. That includes annual allocation of community development block grant funds going forward for a few years, excuse me, and also accessing a Section 108 CDBG loan. That is approximately $3.4 million. There are also some bond proceeds from the former redevelopment agency. Park project is eligible use for those funds, and that's about $785,000 that's available there. So that would reduce the gap from $11.4 million to $7.2 million. A few additional points for the City Council to know this evening is that under the SPP grant funding, the project does need to be complete by December of 2027. That's the deadline where the funds would need to be returned. Also, potentially, if the project is not complete, the CDBG funding that is spent may need to be replaced with another funding source. The state has indicated we can submit a reduction to the scope of work to them for consideration. However, there's no guarantee that the reduced scope would be approved. The reason for that is because it was a competitive grant. So in conclusion, tonight is an informational item only for the City Council. At your next meeting on May 14th, the Council will be discussing Measure M funding priorities and projects, which will include this Brown Street Park project. Comments?
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions on the council? Seeing none, I'm going to open up to the public. And sir, why don't you go ahead and come forward, and now you can share what you want to say. We don't normally do that, but it just seemed to make sense. You get up at 3 a.m. so.
$18 million for a park. I work for a CM firm and a construction management firm, and I just finished a year ago a fire station in Milpitas that was $10 million. And I don't see how $18 million for a park. I mean, I just did the Dublin police station a few years before that was $21 million. And I don't see how they can still $18 million for a park. And the community kitchen, what do we need a community kitchen for? The kids need an area to play, not a community kitchen. How much money are you really gonna rent that kitchen out and make over there? I got a feeling it's gonna be to serve the homeless. And that's what all the neighbors they wanna put a theater. At first it was an amphitheater, then they say a stage now, but they didn't listen to us in any of the meetings. None of us want the stage there. We already hear all the music from Andrews Park and the high school. We hear on Friday nights the football games. During the summer, my windows are open for the cool breeze to come in, and I hear all the music playing and stuff. And I work and go to bed early, and my daughter-in-law works nights and sleeps during the day and stuff, and it's just hard with all the noise. That's the petition. I walked around and got all 28 neighbors around the whole area. None of us want the park there. We asked, I came to the community, the parks meeting, and to ask them and stuff and talk to them, and got no prevail out of it. And I'd like to see the engineer's estimate on this park. Is this project going to be transparent to where I can look at like the pay apps and see where all this money is being spent and going to go to?
If you have any more questions, just direct them to the council, and I can have staff.
Well, I've did talk with Emily on a few things, and she's doing such a good job. I know she's wanting to do it, and we appreciate the park. We want a park. We asked for a soccer field for the kids, and we didn't get a soccer field. They're building things that they want to build, but they didn't listen to us in the meeting. I mean, we need a place. The kids, Brown Street people drive real fast because they come from Browns Valley Park. People commute through there. The kid's going to have to cross the street there to get to the park, and we asked for a rapid flashing beacon crosswalk, something to help get the kids across the street safe. Nowhere, nothing, haven't heard a word about it. I mean, the first kid that gets run over crossing that street, you guys are going to feel real bad about it, man. I mean, people fly down that street. I wish you guys would come and spend a little time on that street, especially during the commute times. In the morning and the evening, people fly down that road. You can come look at my Ring camera for photos and see there's a Camaro and a Mustang that just race down that street. But that's all I got, man. And I wish you guys would listen and not put the stage there where the neighbors don't want it, man. I mean, it's too loud. We already hear all the music that comes from Andrews Park on Saturday nights when you guys have the music there. Great. I mean, I like it. It's far enough away I can barely hear it, but it's still, I hear it. And if they put a stage next door, I'll really hear that, man. And so.
Well, thank you.
Have a good
Yeah,
night.
thank you for sharing. Thank you for sticking around. I've got your petition, so I'll make sure it gets attached. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, Tom Flippy. I'm speaking tonight as president of the Play for All Park. I thought I would share a brief information with Emily because you may recall, got a $1.7 million grant from the state and have exactly the same issues the city is struggling with for our phase 2 of the park. We've been successful, Emily, if you could talk to Carol Landry or Steve Ramos they're part of my board of directors. They've been having discussions with the state and they're very receptive to reductions because of the inflation. They understand it completely. We've been very successful with them. I just wanted to add that small piece of information while I was here anyway.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And Brian, could you answer that question as far as the payouts?
The bidding and the engineer's estimate, absolutely. Of course, if this project does move forward, if council decides to fund it at some point, or we are able to source those funds, this project, like any other public project, would go through the public bidding process. So we would end up submitting the project out to the public. Bidders would bid on it. There would be a bid opening. Those bids would be tabulated, and they would come before City Council in an open meeting for your evaluation consideration before that particular contractor was recommended to be moved forward to award of contract. So that's on the public bidding process. I will say very quickly in regards to the safety concern of crossing the street. If we have the residents' contact information, we can certainly have our traffic engineer and our traffic team connect with that resident and investigate that particular concern.
Well, if we can, as soon as we're done, you can speak with the gentleman and get that information before he has to leave and prepare for work early in the morning. That would be great. And so appreciate those comments. I'm going to bring it back to the council for any comments. Councilmember Silver.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm very excited about this project because it's been a long time coming. I've seen these elements work in other communities that I've had the honor of living in to where they've really transformed their communities. The reality is people look upon the neighborhood that I grew up in, that some of us invested and continue to invest in. They look down upon this area. The concept behind this is that, even as is stated in the layout, is that we have these funds. No one anticipated the cost going up. Absolutely agree with my neighbor, about transparency and understanding how the cost drives up so much. I understand our charts, but how that lays out, I think is something that's a very valid question for all of us. But the concept for this, and this is for the public and the community, anybody else who's interested, is that it's been stated from this council members that the homeless are there, right? We have homeless shelters that are there for veterans, to single moms with kids, single fathers with kids, single women. So for majority of the deed restricted units in the city are all majority of them are in that particular area. And so one of the questions is, how do you change the perception of people that are working hard, working days, working nights, working both, just to make ends meet, that are working towards leaving something better for their future generations? How do we leave a legacy of something that, as a whole, is a place that's welcoming to all, to where even if you have a drive, a willingness, and a work ethic to get out of homelessness, that you have the steps along the way to do that, including even potentially owning your own little side business. So the concept behind the commercial kitchen is that if you want to run a restaurant, which many people do out of their backyards or their garages, not legally, that now they have a place to do that. And having a performance stage or what something that's not on there, it's not listed as I don't think, is it an amphitheater? So it's not an amphitheater, which is what I've noticed that the petitions hold, is worded. Okay, well, what I would like council to support is something that I've gone throughout the community. Some of you all were with me, and asking for feedback for the community. One of the things that was in there was, how do we have a space that there can be small events, events relative to the neighborhood, the culture within the neighborhood, that in itself overall is welcome within the neighborhood, to where now you have people that are gathered, people come together, people are unified, get an opportunity to meet one another, and through that you grow and strengthen your community to see how individually they can contribute towards something better in a place where there's not much ownership. So one of the questions that and challenges that many of us have to overcome is, how do you develop a pride of ownership in an area where they know dang well that they don't own anything there? And what we've seen from Eagle Scout projects to other type of projects, and even projects that city or county or state try to put on us, is that people do show up when and how they can. Those Eagle Scout projects, just with simple plants, I've seen people I've never seen before come out and pick weeds, right? They have nowhere to put it, so they pile them up nicely. But to me, those are the things that continue to inspire me and let me know that investing in this area, investing in the folks that live there, is worth it. Now, one of the things, the challenges of how do you get people that normally don't come out, how do you make it's something that many people struggle with any type of event, is making it something that's relative to them. And so some of the things that where we have in certain family dynamics, where both when the men come out, the women come out too, meaning that their wives, the whole family dynamic. And so one of the concepts that was proposed, and where I'm still asking for council just to get a figure from staff on, is what would it take to have a large screen to have movie nights at the park, or be able to watch live stream live events like World Cup games or boxing matches or whatever it is, to where you have events to where anybody who has an aspiration, not just to have a party, not just to go, not just to make it be a nuisance, but how do you create a space that is welcoming to all, to where now if you also, because you're having that event, now you also have the ability to set up a market, something that's legal, permitted, and if it's a food, you got a commercial kitchen that's available there to run that business out of there. If it's selling other trinkets or whatever the heck it is, how do you now have a space to do that? And so one of the goals that we've constantly been talking about, that I've been talking about, entrepreneurship. We talked about small business earlier, right? We've all invested in money into supporting Lemonade Day, of how to get our youth involved in understanding what it takes to run a business, and then even Farmers Market from downtown Vacaville. There's still opportunities there for kids to run a business. So the question is, if you have an area that's low income, that's often looked down upon and saying, oh, that's where all the crime's at, or that's where all the homeless people are at, how do we start changing that? And the only way to do that is you start putting in funding and working with folks, with all residents, to see how we can all work to make this better. Not just some place that people just go to or look down upon or race through, but how do we make it something that's safe and welcoming to all? Obviously, you're never going to see 100% on everything, but the feedback that I've had is contrary to what, hey, we don't want a park, or we don't want this. Some people are saying that, but an overwhelming majority want something to go home to or go to after work or throughout their day, to where they feel welcome. The park there came out, in my opinion, better than what I had envisioned on the layout and the limited, when you look at it, it seems like plenty of room, but there is a soccer field there. There is another concept to make another area into a concept of a soccer field to adapt that. That's why we started initiating the neighborhood association. The concept of speeders. We've had a huge staff deficiency within our police department. This entire council, with staff support, working with our police department, made moves, invested significant funds to address that gap to where we're fully staffed. 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with one of our traffic. He asked about the hot spots. Brown Street was absolutely one of them. The other thing that I reach out and keep putting out, including the people who are speaking out to this, is my willingness to go out there and talk to them and share a report that that was been done by traffic studies. So this notion that nothing's been done, there's things that have been done. That traffic report showed that people do speed there above the 50% limit. I forget what is all the stipulations. Is that out of all of that, is they still put it on human behavior. And the human behavior has, unfortunately, or fortunately, however we want to look at it, has to be addressed by police intervention. There's been suggested stop signs that to me make sense, but based on the data, they don't. I'm very happy to either arrange, or if the certain members from the neighborhood don't want to see me or face me in that sense, that's fine. We can have staff, again, share those reports with them. Flashing lights. We have 2 installed next to the school, and that was done by STA funds. All of y'all have heard about me address these different issues since my first time on here. People even make jokes about me about even sidewalks, right? About Mike's sidewalk program. It's not Mike's program, it's a neighborhood issue. It's an ADA issue, and I appreciate staff, Public Works actually coming through and making sure that there are sidewalks throughout the area. Low-income housing, middle-income housing homeowners, they have an opportunity in a program to repair their front of their sidewalks to where it's not imposed. We don't put a lien on their house, essentially. So if those messages didn't get out about the traffic studies, here it is here. And I'm...
So, excuse me, hold on a second.
One person will never talk to me in person. They'll only text me through text or through Facebook. So I can look back there to see if I didn't communicate effectively, but I'm putting it out here right now. I'm happy to have a town hall. I'm happy to have everybody come and yell at me. The traffic studies have been done. I can share those, but in the end, what it found is that the best intervention that's recommended from traffic study is that it's behavioral issues, and that police have to intervene. And those discussions continue to happen, and they will continue to happen. And I, as your elected representative, whether you supported me or not, am still here to make sure that people in that neighborhood feel safe too, because they deserve that just as much as anybody else.
Thank you, Councilmember Silva. And just to be clear, this is there's no action tonight. This is, excuse me, sir, hold on. Sir, if you hold on for just a minute, when we're concluded, this is not, sir, this is not how we conduct a meeting. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to be able to get your information to Brian McLean so that he can contact you. Okay, all right, that's good. All right. That's it. That's it. So what I'd like to just make sure that staff understands is, and the city, is the only thing that, the reason why this is on for tonight is to help us as a council be informed formally on the process of this project, not the merits of the project, which I totally appreciate the passion that you have for it. It's the funding pieces that go to this and the decisions that need to be made, and staff is looking for direction from council, but not from council tonight. This is about a funding issue, and that funding issue will come into further discussion when it comes back in May for a Measure M discussion on whether or not there is the ability to bridge the gap. That is really the discussion for then, and tonight is really informative, so it helps the public and us understand things cost more money, and that will play into it as far as those funding pieces. So with that, I don't see any other lights, but I do appreciate the presentation, and it's sticker shock, and that's the reason why it needed to come on tonight, is to understand the decisions that we might have to make in the future on this project. So thank you very much. All right. All right, next item, item 9A.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This next item is a resolution initiating an amendment to the general plan to allow the construction of a single-family home on the ridgeline within the proposed Vine Street Estates project. We have Noah Ramboa, our assistant planner, and Albert Enolt to present this item.
Good evening.
All right. Good evening, Council, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of Council, members of the public. My name is Noah Rambella, Assistant Planner, and I'm here to present this item, which is a general plan amendment initiation for a lot in the Vine Tree Estates subdivision. So the request before you tonight is to initiate a general plan amendment to revise existing policies in the general plan designed to preserve ridgelines and limited development to accommodate the construction of one single-family home on top of a ridgeline in conjunction with the proposed Vine Tree Estates project. The Vine Tree Estates project is located off of Vine Street. It's located between Vine Street and west of Markham Avenue, kind of near Gable Avenue. It's a vacant 18.9 acre parcel, as you can see on the right. And in the little mini picture in that map, there is a aerial view of the project site. And on top of the hill that's located within the project, the applicant is proposing to construct a single-family home on what is called Lot 1. So the overall Vine Tree Estates project consists of multiple application requests, a general plan amendment, a zoning map amendment, a plan development, and a tentative subdivision map. The item before you tonight specifically is in regards to initiation of the general plan amendment. The project is to subdivide this 18.9 acre parcel to create 28 lots for custom home single-family development in the Vine Street area. And so the applicant is requesting a general plan amendment in order to construct that new custom single-family home on top of Lot 1, which contains a prominent ridgeline. The general plan contains various policies to preserve existing scenic resources throughout the city, including hillsides and ridgelines. And there in the picture to the right, again, is another view of the project site. The ridgeline residence would be on Lot 1, which is on top of that hill. So the current application was submitted in October of 2022. And within that initial review, staff identified that there was a potential conflict with general plan policies related to ridgeline development. And so between that time and now, the applicant has since resubmitted the project multiple times, but the project continues to have a ridgeline residence on Lot 1. And so because of that potential conflict with general plan policies, on March 1st of this year, the applicant filed an application for a general plan amendment to revise those policies to allow the Lot 1 development to move forward in the development review process. Just for some background regarding the city's relationship with policies regarding ridgeline development, in 1990, the city's general plan and the city's land use and development code was the first time that the city really had policies designed to preserve ridgelines, specifically areas with hills and slopes that are at or are exceeding 25%. The Land Use and Development Code at the time contained a figure that identified specific ridgeline locations throughout the city, one of which is the project site. In 2001, the City Council adopted an amendment to the general plan in response to an application from a private owner over in the Vine Street, Gibson Canyon area to allow for ridgeline development on certain sites within the Vine Tree, Gibson Canyon ridgeline, and that was approved by the City Council in 2001. In 2015, the city adopted a comprehensive update to the general plan, and it did retain the policies prohibiting development on ridgelines and slopes at or exceeding 25%. It also contained a new figure within our safety element, which showed locations of slope percentages, but didn't exactly identify where ridgelines are specifically in the city. It also did not continue the proposed RD amendment that was adopted by council in 2001 that allowed ridgeline development on certain sites. Instead, it just has a general policy prohibiting development on ridgelines throughout the city. In 2022, the city adopted a comprehensive update to our land use and development code, and that update removed the figure in the code that showed specific ridgeline locations throughout the city because the new ridgeline analysis was not completed. However, staff believes that because these areas have not changed in terms of topography since 2021 and 2022, that we can still rely on those figures in order to determine consistency with the general plan. And in 2023, in accordance with state law, the city adopted an update to our safety element, and those ridgeline policies regarding development on ridgelines and on slopes were retained. However, one of those figures that showed the locations of slope percentages was removed from the safety element. The project site is designated in the general plan as residential estates, and it has a zoning of residential estates with a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. It's also located within the hillside overlay because there is a hill on the site, and also the Vine Street overlay, which has special standards for the Vine Street area. As part of the project, the applicant is requesting to reduce the lot size from 20,000 to 12,000 square feet. It would still be zoned residential estates, and the Vine Street overlay would still apply. But that is part of the project application and would be considered at a future date as the project moves forward in the development review process. As part of the project, staff has conducted various public outreach throughout the development review process. Upon receipt of the application in 2022, the city sent out a new project notice to all residents within 600 feet of the project site to just let people know that the city has received the application. In August of last year, we held our first neighborhood meeting online, during which many residents attended the meeting virtually to express concerns and ask questions about the project proposal. In March of this year, after we received the general plan amendment application to revise general plan policies related to ridgeline development, we hosted another virtual neighborhood meeting to introduce the proposed amendment, so that way residents and community members are aware that that was an application that was being considered. During that meeting, many residents and community members expressed concerns and asked questions about the project in general, although a few did have comments regarding the ridgeline, with one speaking in support of allowing a new home to be built on the ridgeline, and two expressing concerns and asking questions about the proposed ridgeline development. On April 12th, the city mailed a public notice to an expanded mail-in radius that includes other areas beyond the 600-foot radius, including areas along Vine Street and in the Markham Street area neighborhood, because the project now does include a general plan amendment, which is a more legislative action that has different citywide effects. And so that notice was mailed in April, on April 12th. The item before council tonight is to initiate the general plan amendment because non-city initiated general plan amendments have to be initiated by council prior to continued development review of the amendment, of the proposed amendment. And so council tonight can choose to either approve or deny the GPA initiation request. Approving the initiation tonight does not restrict the council to approving the general plan amendment at a future date. It's rather just giving the applicant permission to continue forward with the development review process. If the council initiates the general plan amendment tonight, when the item comes back to you at a future date, you will be required to make various findings if you were to approve the amendment. And these include consistency with the general plan, making sure that the amendment wouldn't be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, maintaining appropriate balance of land uses, consistency with state law, and also compatibility with the surrounding area. And so if the city council chooses tonight to initiate the general plan amendment, staff will begin further evaluation of the proposed amendment, initiate the environmental review process, and then return at a future date with a recommendation on the entire project. However, the council could also choose to determine that the general plan policies regarding ridgeline development do not apply to this project, and so the project would continue forward in the development review process with no general plan amendment required. Alternatively, the city council could also choose to not initiate the general plan amendment request and instead require that the house on lot 1 be relocated away from the ridgeline in order for the project to move forward. And so to conclude, initiating the general plan amendment would confirm that general plan hillside policies do apply to the project, and this would provide the city the opportunity to evaluate the development of lot 1. If the general plan amendment is initiated, staff would study further options, including consistency with the city's housing element, looking at the history of general plan amendments for ridgeline development, and evaluating different ways to reduce visual impacts and ensure that those effects are depicted accurately when it comes before you at a future date. And so staff recommends that by simple motion, the council adopt the subject resolution, initiating an amendment to the general plan by revising policies as needed to allow the construction of a single-family home on a ridgeline within the proposed Vine Tree Estates project. And so that concludes staff's presentation. We're here to answer any questions, and the applicant also does have a presentation as well, if council would like to hear that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Seeing no immediate questions, Councilmember Stockton.
Yeah, I was going to wait until they did their presentation, but I'll ask now. I just want to confirm that tonight is just about the ridge line. It's not about
That's correct. It's only about the ridgeline.
Okay, and since you brought up that it is on the table for it being potentially reduced in the future, have there been any promises made to the public in that area regarding the lot sizes staying or being at 20,000 square feet lots?
Staff has not made any promises about that. We've provided notification about what the request is, but we're still doing the development review process to see whether or not components of the project comply with city standards.
And is the answer to your question about that you're aware of, or is that historically when you go back and look at the project as well?
Could you repeat the question?
So I guess my question is this was stuff that there was stuff being talked about with this ridgeline when I was in high school, right? So clearly none of us were here. So I'm wondering if you're speaking about yourself personally, you know, the folks that are working right now with you, or historically, if there's been any sort of notations regarding the lot size staying or remaining at 20,000 square feet.
The current zoning designation that's been adopted for this area has been for 20,000 square foot lot size. So the vision when that zoning was put in place would be that there would be 20,000 square foot lots within this area. The applicant's request is to make that change to 12,000 square foot lots.
But the ridge has nothing to do with the lot size tonight.
Correct.
Councilmember Wiley.
Would you go back to slide 13, just go back to one more? So by simple motion, adopt the resolution initiating the amendment to the general plan by revising the policy as needed to allow the construction of the single-family home on the ridgeline. So it sounds like to me that if we do approve it, it will allow it. So my understanding, first while I was going through this after we got it, was if we vote in the affirmative, it's not necessarily to allow it, it's just to investigate whether or not it should be allowed. But when I'm looking at that, it sounds like if I vote for it, it will allow construction. So would you clarify that?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councilmember Wiley. So if you were to adopt the resolution tonight, staff would analyze general plan policies related to ridgeline development. And in the future, when the project is brought before council for a final decision, there would be different options for how the general plan could be amended in order to allow a house to be built on lot 1. And at that time, the council would decide whether or not they want to adopt an amendment to allow a house to be built on lot 1, or they could choose to deny the amendment and for the house on lot 1. So this is just giving staff and the applicant permission to move forward with the project as is with a house on top of the ridgeline.
Right, by revising policies as to whether or not to allow, I guess is what I want to say. If I vote yes after hearing the discussion, that's not for sure the house can go in.
Yes, it will not obligate the council to approve a house on top of the ridgeline.
All right, because reading that, it just looked like to allow it. So I wanted to clarify that.
It might be easier if you go back to one more slide.
Well, that's my understanding.
There are 2 slides, the one with the options. There you go. This makes it a little clearer. I see where you're going. Does this help?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
Based for the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So, Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, kind of a little more on the clarification. So if we were to amend the general policy, would it just apply solely to this building, or would it apply to other ridge lines throughout the city?
So that's something that council can give input on tonight, and that would be something that we would evaluate as part of the development review process.
And would that set a precedent? So if we did allow it on one, if a developer came in later down the road and said, hey, you allowed this one, why not? this one, or is that just purely council discretion?
In 2001, a similar request was presented to council, and council applied an exception for those specific lots, but not elsewhere throughout the entire city.
Okay,
It's a similar scenario here.
thank you.
All right, at this time, I think we can go ahead and have the applicant make their presentation, if you can bring their slides up.
Mayor Carley, members of the council, Tom Filippi Engineering. I'm representing the project proponents, David Roth, Phil Webb, and Marcia Webb, who are in the audience with us tonight. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here. Tonight, the neighbors will bring up several concerns about the project, but I'd like to take a moment and focus on the purpose of tonight's meeting and some of the positive aspects that the project brings to the city of Vacaville, and more particularly the Vine Street area. We're going to try and hope this works. Here we go. The topic of tonight's meeting deals with the proposed Lot 1, which, if approved, would allow the construction of a one-story home on a knoll adjacent to a large church facility. It is important to note that the proposed home would be less than 100 feet from the existing church. So you can see the church, it exists right here. This is all the knoll that we're talking about. The church is on that same knoll. So we're not talking about a knoll that doesn't have structures on it. This has a large church facility, and this would just be a continuation of that, and it would be less than 100 feet away on the same knoll as the existing church. During numerous discussions we've had with staff, they cited 3 policies they believe would prohibit development on this knoll. The first policy is COS P8-1, which discusses preserving scenic features. We believe that this policy is not applicable, as the policy goes on to state that the policy is intended to present a feeling that the city is surrounded by open space. It's hard to see on this. I apologize for this. We took a satellite photo and tried to show the large landforms. In our opinion, this policy is related to, well, I'm sorry, that's not working very well. Related to the large landforms that are outlined in red. Old Rocky, for example. Not every little nook and cranny within the Vine Street area. Historically, within the Vine Street area, homes have been sited on nearly every knoll and ridge, and our proposal is in keeping with that precedent. This is a picture looking north from proposed Lot 1, and you can see all the various homes on the ridges. To further illustrate this, I'd like to direct your attention to the next 2 slides, which show homes on the ridges. That's visible from Vine Street, as is that one. And there are others, but those are 2 examples. The next policy cited by staff is policy COS P8-2, which discusses major ridge lines and hillsides. Again, as previously stated and shown, we believe this applies to Old Rocky and other major landforms between the Browns Valley area and Vine Street. Lastly, there is policy SAF P1-2, which discusses prohibiting development on ridges or slopes exceeding 25%. In the tentative map submittal that we submitted to staff, none of the proposed Lot 1 area that will have development exceeds 25%. The slope up of the driveway proposed is 14%. The knoll on top is flat. So we're not proposing to do any grading on an area that's in excess of 25%. Also, to minimize the impact of the home on the knoll, we have proposed, unlike the 3-story home you saw, we have proposed that there be a deed restriction on the Lot 1 home to limit it to 1 story. And we've created 2 different artist renderings of what Lot 1 would look like with mature landscaping. Now you'll look to the right, that's the church facility that's there. This is not a vacant ridge that we're talking about. This is the proposed artist rendering of a home from the Trower Park area. And again, to the left, you'll see the existing church. Based on the above, it is our contention that a general plan amendment is not warranted or needed, and we would respectfully request that the council concur that these policies are not applicable. In the time remaining, I'd like to illustrate some of the benefits for the city of Vacaville and the Vine Street area. Most of you know that I have had my own civil engineering and surveying business here in Vacaville for over 40 years. I have helped process numerous projects in the Vine Street area. And as I look back on all those projects, I cannot remember one project that did not have significant neighborhood opposition. For example, the Vineyard Hills project, which I did not work on, engendered significant opposition when it was proposed in the mid-90s. At the end of the day, that project turned out wonderfully, with residents that are clearly proud of their development. Like Vineyard Hills, it is our opinion that the Vine Tree Estates will create a wonderful amenity for the valley. In addition to beautiful custom homes, Vine Tree Estates will bring numerous other benefits to the community and to the area. Several years ago, the owner of the property put up this ugly fence all along the frontage of Vine Street. Why? Because of the dilapidated cars, engine blocks, dirt, and debris that were regularly dumped on his property. For years, the owner spent thousands and thousands of dollars hauling away junk until it became more economically feasible to install this ugly fence than to haul off the material. In addition to the debris dumped on his property, the hill was regularly used by off-road vehicles to see if they could make it up that hill. And of course, the real challenge was to see if off-roaders could make it up after a rainstorm, which was evident by the mud tract on Vine Street. And of course, with regular trespassers, there were several fires on the hill. In this satellite photo, you can see remnants of the fire from 2005. In addition, the picture shows various trails that have been created by the off-road vehicles. The next benefit for the area deals with traffic. While I don't live on Vine Street, I have friends there, and I have been on Vine Street numerous times. And I have witnessed the cars go extremely fast down the hill from where the church is. As an engineer, civil engineer with a concentrated degree in transportation engineering, I have always been concerned about traffic safety on Vine Street. I lobbied for and designed the first and only traffic circle that exists on Vine Street, which I designed 25 or 30 years ago. It was at my suggestion, next slide, that we install a traffic circle in the middle of Vine Street at the lowest point of the street to serve as a traffic calming device to slow vehicles down. Lastly, I'd like to put the amount of traffic generated by the Vine Trees project into proper perspective. Typically, a single-family house will produce 12 trips per day or one trip during the peak hour. This means at build-out, during the busiest time of day, the Vine Trees project will generate one car every 2 minutes on Vine Street. That's it. In summary, it is our opinion that the Vine Trees Estates project will bring to Vacaville and the Vine Street area the following: a beautiful new executive custom home lot development, which is badly needed in the city of Vacaville, a cleaned up and beautified area of Vine Street, increased property values for everyone, and most importantly, improved traffic control device to slow traffic down. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the floor for any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm not going to speak pro or con to the issue of the development there. But I want to do is express the paradigm Shortly after I came to Vacaville, 1996, lateraled from the Placer County area, and having grown up in Santa Cruz, I noticed that the hills were just packed over. And I witnessed what happened when we go up the El Camino to visit grandparents, and suddenly every hill's got a house on it. And I really didn't want to see that happen to Vacaville. I was so relieved when I saw we had a green belt, and I see that's being chipped away at now. We had another attempt here some years ago by a very influential person to change the zoning so that the hills would be covered with subdivisions, pretty much like Santa Clara and San Jose, etc. Didn't want to see that. So even though I figured my job might be at risk at the city of Vacaville, I was an opponent to allowing them to change the zoning. I like to see people develop their property and do whatever. It's none of my business except for when it impacts everybody else around you. And that's, I hear the word community used frequently with the council. So I think as you ponder this, think of the community, but also be cautious of putting a crack in the dam. I really love Vacaville. This is where I plan on staying until my sand runs out of my sand clock. So whatever you do, I'm hoping that you will be cautious and thoughtful. I'm not saying this is happening here, but it's usually the influential that control real estate and water. They love to lean on politicians and put you in an awkward position. I'm not saying that applies here. In fact, I happen to like the gentleman that owns the property. I like him very much. But I'm looking downrange. Well, we had this exception, that exception. Well, we got another one over here. Then we have a la Santa Clara.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. I'm one of the residents that live up in this neighborhood. I've lived here in Vacaville for almost 40 years. It's a beautiful town. I don't see any houses on our patches there, or our city logo. I think that was for a reason. I think that the council in years past was very wise when they created this guideline for not building on the ridges. We saw a couple of examples of houses that were up on the ridges just in the neighborhood, and I have to drive by one of them every single day, and I'd rather not. I think that we have guidelines for a reason, and as the last gentleman said, when you start making exceptions, it's really easy to go down that road. Because you could make an exception today, well, this ridge would be different, let's look at it and maybe build a house. And then you're going to come back for this same group, and they're going to say, well, there were 20,000 square foot lots, but let's make an exception and let's do 12,000 square foot. You can always chip away at things. And I would just ask you as a resident here, please don't chip away at good guidelines. If the guidelines aren't good, then let's have a different meeting and change the guidelines. And if you want houses on all the hills, then so be it. But I don't think we want that. And this is how you start chipping away at that. Please don't.
Yeah, thank you.
Council, thank you very much. I'm Steve Jacobs. I want to thank you for representing me and my family. I live on Vine Street in District 1. I bought a car in District 2, and I go to church there. I've worked and taught and coached for 30 years in District 4, but I mostly shop in District 3. And I bike all over District 5, and I went to church in District 6 for more than 10 years. But thank you. Just because we live on one street, we're citizens of the whole city. And thanks for representing all of us. The applicant mentioned the people that were complaining on Vine Street back in the 90s. I was one of those. What he didn't mention is that we came to a wonderful compromise. And that's one of the reasons we're really happy with that Vine Street Estates that are down there. Because we compromised. The builder listened to us, we listened to him, and we gave in. But here's my question. Have you walked on our street? Have you walked over this lot in the development? I know it's not in a lot of your districts, but before you make a decision, I wanted to extend an invitation. I'm sure my wife would love to walk you around, as she did with former Mayor Len Augustine and other council members. They walked through some empty fields across the street from us. They were going to fill it in and put in a whole bunch of homes on little bitty lots. And after they saw it, that we had a compromise, and now there's 19 beautiful country estate style homes on 20,000 acre lots. Now, we've been talking about this lot 1. I think that's the key to the whole development, because lot 1 is 3 acres. And so what it does is it boosts the size of all of the lots. It says they have 3 lots that are 6 acres. And the remaining lots are some of them are pretty small. But you can say that the overall size of the lots are over 20,000. Well, that's because you've got these 3 giant lots, and lot 1 is 3 acres. And I think it might have been designed specifically for that purpose, to boost the numbers of the remaining lots. There's been previous plans that we've seen without lot 1 on the top of the hill. We like those. We're not against development on Vine Street. I mean, but we just want it to maintain the flavor. It's been zoned at 20,000. Some people want it to go up to 1 acre, but 20,000 is nice. You can put a good home on there. And we're just ask the city. The promise was made by the city council years ago. That's what we want, just a 20,000. Come on out and take a nice walk. It's very pretty out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else before I close public comment? Yeah, if anyone is considering speaking, go ahead and be prepared so that we're not delayed. There you go. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Linda Jacobs, and we've lived on Vine Street for over 30 years. Sorry, I can't be more personal, but I only have 3 minutes. Throughout the years, the residents have fought to keep our street the jewel it is with appropriate development. One developer wanted to level our valley with dirt and place tract homes behind a masonry wall. We won and saved the topography of the land and custom homes. We compromised to do this by giving up standards on both sides of Vineyard Valley Way. Past city planners, mayors, and city council members recognized that Vine is unique and wanted to ensure it stayed that way. To avoid future problems, the city worked diligently to come up with the special overlay standards, custom overlay standards and more, and minimum 20,000 square foot lots from the traffic circle north to complete all future development on Vine. Many residents have invested hundreds of thousands knowing those standards were set. Concerning Lot 1, staff report states the topography of the site has not changed and GP prohibiting development remains in effect. And the lot is significantly higher elevation, thank you, than existing residents and would be highly visible from surrounding neighborhoods. Lot number 1 is 3 acres. In all past proposals I've seen with the same engineer, the hill has never been considered a lot. It begs the question, why put a lot there now? Because they are proposing to diminish lot sizes to 12,000 minimum, if they add the 3 acres of lot 1 and the 2 acres to the east of the hill, it equals over 6 acres and allowed them to say at the first public meeting, they have an average of 20,000 square foot. But the standard established is for a minimum 20,000, not average. Who is going to want to build a custom home as shown in the applicant's pictures with trees obstructing the spectacular view that is from that lot? Why camouflage the house? I can only think it is to cover up it because it will look out of place and overwhelm the hill and the development. Also, the top of the hill is extremely narrow. That's why we'd like you to walk it. In order to build a one-story custom by our special overlay standards, the hill is going to have to be manipulated somehow, and diminishing the hillside is not acceptable. Yes, there are other houses on Vine's ridgelines, but those homes are at a much higher elevation and do not overwhelm the hill they sit on nor the neighborhood. If this goes through, a precedent will be set, and soon many hilltops could be built in our city and destroy the open feeling we all enjoy.
Thank you.
I ask that you please determine, oh, sorry. Okay.
You can finish
all
that.
right.
You can finish that sentence.
Okay, well, I ask that you please determine the ridgeline policies apply to this project and require the home on Lot 1 to be moved. And I have to just really quickly say, as I'm walking away, that there's a map here that the developer put out, and
Thank you.
we kind of like it.
Thank you. Kind of like, okay, thank you. Seeing no one else, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council for discussion. Councilmember Silva?
Yeah, so just kind of posting the residents on the other side of the hill, the other side of Vine Street. Not too many people are a fan of the homes built on what used to be agricultural area. And one of the people pointed out, I don't see any homes on our logo. And is that something we want to change? I mean, not to be a smart aleck or whatnot, but I think it's a very precarious thing on how we preserve a growing city. We're really in California, everybody's dependent on growth. Most people don't like growth because when the existing issues aren't being addressed. But I think as a whole, I think most people understand that why we have to grow, and the question is how. And for me, I can't support allowing our ridgeline developed, so I'm just a no on rechecking out our general plans. I think that's option 2. But the other part of this, and this is just more for the council to put on the radar, and professional courtesy to the developer and the representative, who I do have a lot of respect for. I have 2 issues when it comes up. One, that particular court that's at the end of that street. To me, it's very curious that court's there. It's very curious that it's there. I'll leave it at that. And then the other thing is lot development, or putting a housing unit on what is depicted as lot number 13. When you stand on Trial Park and people look up, that open space feeling is essential. While there is a church on the top left ridge, and other homes, other people have made that ridge further down a home, those, we got limited space. So, thank you.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation from both of you, as well as the comments. I'm pretty familiar with this area. I have walked this area, patrolled this area, driving in my day job, driving through Vine Street. And while I don't think that a house being developed on that hill is going to detour much from the existing church that's already there, I'm not comfortable with changing things for the entire code. I think that we need to look at these things on a case-by-case basis. That being said, I'm just trying to be as fair and reasonable as I possibly can with this. I think the bigger concern that I have with this project is not that ridgeline having a single-story house that is going to be, where they are not allowed to go to a 2-story. That deed restriction on that. I think the concern that I have is that it's been made clear to me by my constituents that have reached out to me that the expectation when they purchased their homes and lived in these homes is that the lot sizes were going to be 20,000 square feet. I really think that's the big issue here. So for me, I would really like, and I'm going to do some research as well. I'm prepared to, I think it's okay to make an exception, not to change the general plan for the 25% for this situation. But I do want to have notes, or if there's video, I don't know how far back it goes, that we have video of the council meetings where those discussions took place. And there were community members that came here and had those conversations, because I think that's right. I think that they can build a beautiful development there. I think they have every right to build a development there. It's zoned for residential homes there. And if they fall within the zoning that is there, I would be prepared to support a project as long as they're working with the community members and falling within that. So that being said, I think that's my biggest concern, like it always is, no matter where we develop in Vacaville, is realistic expectations for the people that live next door. I don't think it's unrealistic to think that a property owner that owns that parcel of property couldn't build a single-story home right next to a church that's probably taller than what that home would be. So those are my thoughts. I don't know what those lots would look like, and I'm prepared to hear what my colleagues think. But that's kind of what I feel right now. I would be comfortable supporting an exception for that. A house being built on the top of that ridge for this, but not changing the whole code.
Councilmember Wiley.
Thank you both for the presentation. I did take a drive today out on Vine Street, and I have to tell you, it's been a long time since I've driven on Vine Street, so I was quite surprised. And looking at this, should we build on the ridgeline or not, I was really surprised when I saw so much building on the ridgeline, because I thought, how could that happen if we're looking at this house? So we heard a little bit about that. The question I have is, if the person, Mr. Filippi's bringing this forward, says it's 14% of the driveway and at the top it's flat, why does the city say it's 25%? So tell me the perspective from why that's on there. And then how was the 25% set arbitrarily, or is that what every city has? So I want to get some clarification on that difference. And so when I drove, I wasn't exactly sure where it was, but it was very interesting to see the video that it was right next to the church. So the church is there and seemed like a pretty big thing. So a one-story versus a two-story is still going to be a house near there. So, and that's what we're looking at tonight. We're not really looking at the zoning, but it does bother me, because it will come up later, if it's just a math deal to have a couple of big lots to get it to 12, to get it to 20,000, that doesn't really sound the correct way to do it if it's just the average when it should be the minimum. And 12,000 is not a small lot. It's bigger than the lot that my house is on. But if it was supposed to be 20,000, then it's almost half of that. So those are just some things that I am thinking of at this point. So if you will explain to me from our city people where the 25% come from that it's in question.
In order to be able to make a lot one work, there's a driveway that goes along the backs of the lot. And so the reason why we're identifying that policy as a potential issue is the slope that's on that portion where that driveway would be, although the eventual slope of that driveway would be no more than 14%, the existing slope shown on our slope map that our assistant planner referenced was in the general plan shows that component they would have to grade on hillside area that is at 25% slope. So they would be disturbing that portion. The way that we find that information is back when that particular map was created, it was using what's called a digital elevation model. And they shoot lasers to find out what the elevation difference is over the surface of the land. We had it done over the entire city. And that map identified for the entire city where your areas are that have 0 to 5%, 5 to 15%, and 25% or greater.
So it's 25% if you go straight up, but if your driveway curves a little bit, it's going to be 14%, or not really?
There's multiple ways that you could design a driveway so that way the driveway itself doesn't exceed a certain percentage. The main issue with this particular policy is that when you grade on slopes of 25% or more, it's more noticeable. It makes a greater impact on those areas. If you're grading on areas that have a less slope, it's not as noticeable. And so that particular policy was put in place to prohibit and discourage any type of grading that would occur on those steeper hillside areas, because you really are cutting away at the land.
And then at a fairly recent city council meeting, we had to approve money for public works because we had some slumping of a hill. So if building a house, is that going to increase the likelihood of slumping on this particular hill, or is it fairly stable?
I can't comment on the stability of it. Common things that builders are required to demonstrate is whether or not their proposed improvements are going to be able to comply with the California Building Code, whether or not the soil can be treated in order to be able to support driveways and house foundations. We don't know that yet. That's usually something that's done later on in the process when they submit more detailed plans showing how they're going to make those improvements.
All right, and then I thought it said in one place that if we do approve it, it goes through because it's already in our plan. But they would still have to do a lot of land use to prove that it's safe? Or, so there would be a process to make sure it's safe before it went through?
Correct, yes. The eventual end proposal, if City Council decides that there's good cause for moving forward with this general plan initiation, we still have a lot more work to do with the application process. If the eventual project ends up being approved, there's still far more regulatory standards within the California Fire Code and Building Code they'd have to demonstrate compliance with before they even can break ground on that property.
All right, thanks.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, a few of my questions have already been answered. With the code, I know it was brought up that is supposed to maintain the perception of open space. I know from Trower Park, that's pretty much the only view of perception of open space from there. Then we're looking at topography-wise. Unfortunately, in the Army, I had to learn a whole bunch of topography, going up and down hills all over the place. And so that hill is actually part of a much bigger ridge line. The ridge line continues what you see on the map, because where the development's going to go is what's called a saddle, where there's a dip in between two pieces of a ridge line. And so the ridge line, as you see across, there's another smaller ridge line, then a bigger one, and then you have a much larger one getting out past Markham into Browns Valley area. And yeah, I do like to maintain my green space. And I was one of those kids like 25 years ago that I was riding my mountain bike down that hill. So it is quite steep. Been up there plenty of times. I think the main difference with the church, as somebody mentioned earlier, is the church has some nice oaks and more natural trees because they're not too worried about the view. Whereas if you're building a probably multi-million-dollar house up there on top of the hill, you probably want that view. So the obstruction of it by planting all those trees, I don't know how feasible that really is. And the other thing I'm worried about was the lot 13, which is right next to it, is where does that go? Because I see that's between the hill and Markham. Because I'd hate for that house to go in there and obstruct that view as well. And what was mentioned by Councilmember Silva, the curious spot for the court instead of connecting to the already Gable Street, not just from a demographic perspective of kind of segregating the neighborhood there, but also it brought up for numerous other developments, is when you're emptying out onto one single street, say there was another big LNU fire that came down there, and if both your exits are right next to each other on the same street, you kind of can't get out of there. So even if that was one of the public safety access, like what we're talking about over on California, it's still, you have to wait for people to get there. So having a through street into a neighborhood would probably help out on that. I know we're not necessarily talking about that, but it was brought up on the map that I saw earlier. Then I did have one question for staff on, I think it was the second item on our option. yeah, determined general plan policies don't apply. I think for us, like, I'd like take it from staff of whether it does or does not meet requirements. It shouldn't be a gray area. Like you tell us, like, hey, that slopes over 25%, and we have a current ridgeline policy, so it does not meet it and it needs one, versus approving or denying it. Yeah, I felt that one was a little weird of an option there.
I don't think that's a question. I think that's more of a comment.
Yeah, sorry.
Councilmember Chapman.
Thank you. Thank you for the report or the information. I'm assuming that there's been mention of other homes that are on ridge lines. And I'm assuming that their slope does not meet or exceed the 25%. So that could be an assumption. And now with this particular request, it is at that at the 25%. It meets, or okay, it exceeds the 25% or it's at 25%.
The portion of Lot 1 that they would need to grade in order to install a driveway would be on areas that exceed, that is at 25% or exceeds.
Or exceeds, correct. Okay. Before a motion is made, I'm looking at the alternatives that are in your report versus what the staff report. It looks like it's switched. So if the city council should choose not to initiate the general plan amendment, that is choice one, alternative one.
Actually,
it's not.
That's the recommendation. Is to initiate the GPA.
Okay, but this is what I'm saying. In the report we had received, it's just the opposite. I just read
I see what you're saying. So it's creating confusion.
Yes.
Based upon the staff report.
Right.
Well, actually, it's adopted this resolution, so it actually is to initiate the GPA. Am I correct on that? I believe so.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it actually is the same. It's just structured differently from a presentation to the staff report. Any other comments?
Okay. So if I wanted to make a motion at this time.
Yeah, there's no motion to be made at this time.
Oh, till the next.
Yeah, I'm not calling for a motion.
Okay.
There's more lights.
Informational.
Okay. Councilmember, Vice Mayor Ritchie.
So listening to my other fellow council members, kind of have a full disclosure. I was one of those kids. I spent a lot of my time, I see the smiles. I was that kid. I grew up off of Vine Street for a long time on Wesley. And I remember before Tom's project helped on, there's Vine Street 1, Vine Street 2. I watched them both come in and break my heart because I couldn't ride my motorcycle there anymore. All the development behind my house are now beautiful homes he developed. So it kind of ruined that too. But from growing up that hill 100 times a weekend, one thing I realized is Vine Street is unique. It's magical coming. I went to Orchard School as a kid. I lived on Wesley. That pathway and Fair Through, it was different. It was like the country inside the city. It's something is really amazing. I still drive back there and just smile at the houses. Some people have actually passed on because they're older. But the ridge line when does it start and stop? I've seen houses go on the ridge line. I've seen houses go on the hillside. So the same argument could have been said for obstructing the hillside views in the beautiful hills of our city, as opposed to just the ridge lines. So I watched the development through the whole Vine Street, and yes, it was frustrating. It was a lot. My friend's house was actually torn down next to the right-hand side of the church.
So I've seen stuff change and time go. For me, the ridgeline is something that I'm okay with because I've seen other ridgelines throughout that valley and Vine Street already have homes. So for us to say, hey, now you can't do yours, it doesn't seem fair. We have houses on hillsides as well. But, you know, for me, that is something, we talk about the housing element. We talked about diversification of housing, housing for all. Vine Street is something that we need to make sure, as we're trying to work really hard with Don and the team to bring biotech, big business. You have a huge owner that just bought Genentech. We're going to see major development come to our city for the next 5 years, 10 years, and we need to make sure we have a stratified housing, diversification. Vine Street is amazing. The lots at 8,000 square feet, I don't think really fit on Vine Street. I think that is something unique and special, where it is an enclave inside the city that could be executive housing, that estate housing with a country feel. And I think really, I know it's not the right time and place, but kind of find a way to kind of re-augment the plan, make 20,000 square foot lots the norm. It would keep that uniqueness. We need to have executive housing and keep that special, or else we're not going to have it. We'll be the same situation, wondering, well, where are they going to stay? Where is executives going to stay? If everything gets small and small lots, we do need that in our city, but we do need to make sure that we keep our eye on the prize and have diversification. So having a 3 acres lot and one at 9,000, it's not really going to cut it. We need to either have them all be uniform and fit and adhere to that Vine Street Valley, or figure something else out. But when it comes to the beautiful house on the hill, I think it can be aesthetically pleasing. It is going to affect both sides of the hill, but you know, the church there has been there for a long time. I think people just get used to it, like ambient sound. There's already, if you drive on Markham Avenue, the whole ridgeline, I watched that get built. All the houses on the backside of that were the last 20 years. So that was an issue when that happened, that they destroyed the view, and now you don't think twice of it. So I think that's what kind of saying my age from living in the city on Vine Street. So for the owner, that literally was me for a big portion of my life, and hopefully it never caused any problems. Thank you.
Councilmember Silva.
I just want to clarify, a little 8-year-old asked me, why are those houses up there? And just to put that in perspective, how even youth, when they look around and they see nature versus development of nature, it's something that resounds in them. So I want to counter the argument that it doesn't bother people. It absolutely does, particularly when power goes out to protect Vine Street, and that impacts the low-income area elsewhere because it's all on the same circuit. Luckily, PG&E is putting the grid wires underneath, and hopefully the utilities follow at some dang point. But those generators kick on, and luckily that lights up the rest of us. So
this is an interesting discussion, and for me, I used to have a diagram that had the ridgeline map. And in preparation for tonight, I couldn't find it because I hear tonight it was removed. I think it would be important somewhere in the future that there is a way for somebody who owns land or is proposing to own land. It doesn't just look at as a zoning map for the size of a lot to be able to say, you can't build here. I had the experience of the project that put up the public safety radio tower. I've walked those hills. Those are ridge lines, okay? So I don't know what this is called. I mean, it's closer to a knoll, it's a mound. I mean, I don't have the topography definitions, but it doesn't take long to really understand. Your word probably is the most accurate because it is connected when you're up there. There's a street that dead ends. There was probably, proposed growth years ago and nothing went forward. I'm aware of that property being attempted to be developed for years. I'm also aware of everyone riding their motorcycles up it, getting stuck back when I was in law enforcement. Vine Street's unique. It really is. And the closest thing that we have to Vine Street is Wyckoff. I can only imagine that those lots are more than 25 degrees. And somehow cutting into those, I know those today, they probably wouldn't be able to be permitted. But it's a gem. It's an area of our community that you say, it's really neat. Some people love to park and hike up those hills. It's just really special. Vine Street is special and nobody wants to lose Vine Street. But when you drop down from where Old Rocky is, and it comes into the 90 degree where Markham Avenue bends where it goes by the school, you look up and you see Old Rocky. But when you look straight ahead, you look at the back of the neighborhood that's been described tonight and all the residents that are there. And I've driven that many times, and I drove it again today. They're beautiful homes. They're you call them custom homes, semi-custom homes. It's a beautiful neighborhood. Vine Street is just one of those special places. So clearly tonight is not about a final product of what would have to go through the whole process as you described. It's whether or not the initiating a general plan amendment in this particular case because of a lot, not the zoning size for a parcel to build on, but the actual, the words that's being used as a ridge line, the overlay is called hillside. There's so many different ways to describe it. I think it would be important in the future that anyone knows that if you were to be able to draw what those lines look like, everyone knows when you drive around Vacaville, it doesn't look like the hills of Oakland. It doesn't look like the hills of Alamo. It has been preserved in such a beautiful way that we should never allow anything that inhibits that. But when you get to the Vine Street where the developments are, and we'll call it Lower Vine, all the way up to the north end where the residential areas are that are city-county mixed, there's houses everywhere. It's not like there's not. And it's hard to call them ridge lines. I don't consider it a ridge line there, but I couldn't find the map to say that here's what the past looked like. I had the same question as Councilmember Wiley, and that is, if it's a deed restricted to a single story and you have to cut the top of the mound, which puts it probably at a lower level than the church, does that constitute a general plan amendment in the sense that, are we looking at 25% grade based upon ridge lines or just slopes? Have we conflated the two, or are we looking at them two separately and we've answered the two? So it's an interesting question that is proposed. I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong. It's just that there's a lot of houses that if you were to cut a driveway and it's not any more than 25% proposed. But as it comes to us tonight, it's against our policy, so therefore it would require a initiation of a general plan amendment. So at the very least, I'm supportive of that. It just would be important to know moving forward that we have some clarity, because there are those beautiful lots that people want to build. And if you're going to buy property believing you're going to be able to build on them, well, they should be able to look at our code and say, I can do this. Otherwise, we're being disingenuous with what we're attempting to do. I do agree with what I've heard tonight, and that is there's probably a lot of promises that are made in the past. Unfortunately, what happens is somebody who's elected and makes a promise, and 8, 10, 12 years later, they're not on the council. It's not a viable promise because it's not in the code. If something's in the code, then clearly it's zoned. That's exactly right. So, and I certainly appreciate Councilmember Silva, the perspective of whether you're looking up from the park or you're looking out from a view. Everyone has a different vantage point. And I love views and I love open space too, but that's why it's a balance. And this is why, what the applicant has said, it's a difficult thing. You're always going to get opposition. Nobody wants to disrupt the beauty that's up there. And I love it up there, but I just think that when I apply this like Wyckoff, we would be hard pressed to look at this in a much different way. I still don't believe it's a ridge line, but I will be supportive of initiating a general plan amendment for review. But I do believe that separate than that, the city needs to create some clarification on what a ridge line is, what a hill is, what a knoll is, because my view, it's very different. And I love the ridge lines in Vacaville, and we need to keep those open spaces the way that they are. Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the point I was looking at, what Dr. Chapman is looking at. So in the alternatives in the staff report, the alternatives 1 and alternatives 2 are flip-flop compared to what's on the side. So if that does come up, the numbers are backwards.
So I've got the
regular motions is the same, the recommendation is the same, but alternative 1 is
I see.
do not initiate.
So the alternatives are inverted.
Yes.
Yes, I see that. Thank you for the clarification. That does create some confusion. Does that help?
Oh, yeah, fine.
No, that's good to know.
Just in case one of them gets voted
Okay.
on. They put
So with that, do you have is there any reason why the map was removed, by the way? Because now we're making assumptions that it existed, but we remove anything that has any. I used to have a copy of it when I worked for the city as staff, but I don't have that anymore.
Example of the copies are included in the staff report as attachment 3. So if you wanted to take a look at the former maps that we used to have.
The link didn't work for me, so
Okay.
So I know what it used to look like. I just couldn't find it.
So to your question, we don't know why they were omitted. The process for conducting the comprehensive update to the municipal code was a very long process, very large. We have correspondence that indicates that there was an intent to keep those or retain those or restudy them, but
got lost.
Got lost.
Okay. Councilmember Stockton.
Just a quick comment, and I'm speaking loudly because I'm really struggling to hear people. This HVAC system is so loud that if anybody turns away from their microphone, it is extremely difficult. I don't know if the audience can hear, but I would just, anybody else that's talking, if you could kind of turn the volume up a little bit, just because it's right above my head and it's very loud. So.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
it.
you. So with that, do I have a motion? Did you have a comment?
No, motion.
Okay.
So I know there's some confusion on basis what's written, what's proposed in staff report and whatnot. So I might need some help with staff on this. So I am not in support of allowing the ridge line to be developed as what my understanding was defined by staff. So my motion would be my motion is to uphold our general plan and not move forward with amending it.
Just read that one. Want to read that one?
So would you, City Attorney, should I read alternative 2 as written, as presented here, or do we go by staff report? I prefer actually just to go by, or I could just verbalize it.
You could either do alternative 2 that's on the screen from what I'm hearing.
For clarification, legal purposes, I'll read, my motion is that we as City Council decline to initiate the GPA as requested. Is that fair?
Yeah, yes.
That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Roll call.
Councilmember Stockton?
No.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ritchie? Mayor Carley?
No. So the motion passes. And again, just for clarification, this was not to approve a house on the lot. It was to approve a general plan amendment to go through the process. But that has, the motion has passed. And so we'll move on. Item 9B.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council.
Can I just make one more comment? I do believe staff still needs to work on what got lost on the last update.
Acknowledged.
Okay. Yeah. Because without it, it makes it very difficult for for what that is, and maybe some clarification on what a knoll is versus what a ridge line is.
Understood.
Can we take a recess?
5 minutes. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes.
We have two, but.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This final item is an update of the relaunch of our financial transparency website. Ken Matsumiya, our Finance Director, and Crystal Welty, Management Analyst, will present this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. As mentioned, tonight we have a brief presentation to announce the launching, preview the relaunching of our financial transparency website, Open Finance. Next slide, please. So just some brief background to start off the presentation. This item was identified as one of the implementation strategies of our current strategic plan. So it falls under goal number 4, maintaining effective and efficient services. And the strategy itself was to continue to expand upon best practices used for budget transparency. And so as part of the strategic plan related to budget transparency, one of the things that we've been doing is the quarterly budget updates. This was something that started really after COVID, where we moved away from doing budget updates, once or twice a year, to where this is being brought to council quarterly. And while that's definitely an improvement over the prior process, one of the other things that was a priority was relaunching this website so that in between those updates, if any stakeholders, residents wanted to see how the city was tracking with spending and revenue, so they'd be able to look at that. It'd be at their fingertips and something they can access. And so that is what we'll be demoing this evening. And so some of the key benefits of having an open finance, an open budget transparency portal is it presents the budget information in an intuitive visual manner. And so with us in finance, we love our numbers and love our spreadsheets, but we understand that's not for everybody. And so one of the really big things with this this website is that it allows you to it uses graphs, and a lot of visuals allows people to understand really complicated information in a simple way. The information is updated directly from our financial software. So like I said, you are getting this not in real time, but it is pretty much on a daily basis that you're getting updates. And then the last item is that for Freedom of Information Act requests, we do get this regularly in finance regarding like which vendors the city is using, how much we're spending in a given year. And so this is something that with us relaunching it, we could point to those people who are requesting it to the website as opposed to having staff dig up that information. Next slide, please. So before we hop into the demo, just mentioning that the two things that we'll be going over are there's two sections of the website. So there's the open budget, which is it tracks the city's revenues and expenses and compares that to the budget. So that will be something that any user would be able to do. And then open checkbook, which is what I had mentioned related to those Freedom of Information Act requests, where if you wanted to view spending, what vendors the city is using, then that information is all available through the open checkbook. And so the plan is to preview this evening, and then it would be available for people to view tomorrow. And I'll now pass it on to Crystal Welty, who really is the lead behind this project. She did all the heavy lifting, and so what you're about to see is really due to all the effort that she's put into this. And so I'll pass it on to Crystal.
Let's see, can everybody hear me? So I am going to go ahead and pop out of the screen with our PowerPoint presentation and show you our website where you can find this information tomorrow. And we'll be doing a real-time demo of the website that will be launched tomorrow. So if you go to the city's website and the finance page, then you can go to the financial transparency button and find the Socrata Open Finance website. And so good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. Tonight, I'll be providing a preview of Open Finance Vacaville, a relaunch of the city's financial transparency portal. And as I mentioned, it goes live tomorrow. The homepage of the transparency portal shows the city's total revised operating budget, as well as the option to drill into the revenue side or the expense side, and to look at vendor payments. Also on the homepage, users can find a link for common questions, which we can add to as additional questions are received. So we have a couple of questions preloaded, but as we get questions emailed to us, and council and members of the public are welcome to email us at CityofVacaville.gov, which is available on the website. There are also on the website focus cards, which can be used to provide various entry points into the data. The general fund revenue focus card, for example, shows general fund revenue sources, which are a combination of taxes, department fees and charges, other revenues, and intergovernmental. And by clicking on this, I am able to drill directly into the revenue data set. By default, the data is visualized as a bar graph, sorted in descending order, with the largest value items appearing on the top. And by clicking on the graph, you can further explore the taxes category to see the category that includes functional revenue. So you're seeing some fire and police functional taxes that are received and attributed to those departments. Or you can use the drop down to see the revenue type, which you might want to view as a pie chart. And if you were to view the taxes as a pie chart, this is exactly what you see. From any point in the data, we can use the left side column to navigate back up to the top of the revenue data and see how, for example, general fund revenue compares against all budgeted revenues. From here, the pie chart shows that general fund revenue makes up about half of the overall citywide revenue, and we see enterprise fund revenue from water and sewer services as the second largest revenue category, providing approximately 1/4 of total revenue. The third largest revenue category is special revenue, and by clicking on it, we can see that category broken out by department. Housing and Community Services is the primary department, and by drilling into the department function, we can see these special revenue funds, which are predominantly comprised of housing grants, broken down functionally by program. That is the revenue piece, and if we go back to the main page, we can explore expenditures similarly. So we're seeing the total revised operating budget broken out by department. And again, we may want to choose that option by looking at a pie chart, and we can drill into a department such as Human Resources, and we can see the expenditure category, which is going to show us things like salary and benefits, supplies and services, indirect cost, and so on. Going back to the main page, we are able to look at total vendor payments. Unlike the operating budget, which is demonstrated by the revenue and expense portions, the total vendor payments includes all vendor payments, including things like capital project payments. The site will allow members of the public direct access into the financial data available to them, as Ken mentioned, under the Freedom of Information Act, which should reduce staff time spent responding to these sorts of public records requests. And from here, you can see how payments are broken down by department, or you can use the drop-down to see by vendor. And there are additional options in the drop-downs. If you scroll down, you can see this information, the vendors listed, and we can drill into PG&E, for example. We can see that data presented over time. We can also see it broken down by department or subcategory or in other manners. At the bottom of the home page, you can see that this data is live as of today. And what that means is that since these are practically real-time numbers, it's important to note that they have not been audited. For this reason, you shouldn't be overly concerned with every variance. I'm sure we've all experienced a situation where we have maybe misdialed a phone number, and the same exact thing can happen when we're entering a financial transaction. Finance staff and all sorts of staff all across the city are constantly working in multiple periods, including prior periods, to analyze results and variances and make corrections as needed. Open Finance Vacaville is yet another tool we can use to ensure that all information is captured accurately. And despite the way Open Finance makes it appear, things are not always instantaneous, and there are some necessary delays in financial processes driven by things like review procedures. Neither council nor the public should be surprised if you don't see transactions loaded immediately after an augmentation or other financial action is approved, because there may be real-life tasks, such as accounts that need to be set up or contracts that have to be executed that need to be completed before entries will be posted in our financial software and reflected in Open Finance. With that, we are happy to take any questions or comments.
Well, thanks for the presentation, and I do recall when this was its initial launch, and in the interest of being transparent and especially having the data available to the public and to staff as well, it's really easy to be able to take a quick peek. This is exactly what is good governance. So I'm very appreciative that this is happening, and thank you for doing this, and as staff making sure that this is a priority. So, Councilmember Wiley.
Thank you for the information and the presentation tonight. And so on one of the slides when you were doing it, you were showing a pie chart, and then the other one's a bar chart, and then so on the side it said like ledger or over time. So you can click on one of those other things and see it in a different presentation if you wish. Is that correct? Okay. And then I'm sure if I go on this tomorrow, I could drill down and I could find the answer, but I'm just going to ask you, so what is the cost to the city for having this service? And do we pay on a yearly contract or what?
The Socrata Open Data is part of our Tyler product suite, and I believe it's $15,600 a year.
A year?
Yeah.
And then do a lot of cities have this, or were there a lot to choose from, or did we go with this because this is what we used before? Or, I mean, it looks fine, but I just wanted to know.
That's a great question. And it's like the mayor had mentioned. So the city did go through an RFP, like an evaluation process, I think when this came about maybe in 2016. And the Socrata ended up being kind of the top selection based off of how it was the presentation and the different options available. Our financial software is called Tyler Munis. Socrata happened to get acquired by the same Tyler that runs our financial software. So it is nice to have Socrata because I guess on top of how it looks like publicly, it also interfaces really nicely with our financial system. And so one of the downsides to this prior to relaunch, and the reason why we had to take it offline, is we were having to manually push the data out there. Whereas with the fact that they're both Tyler products, it's able to pull it. And that's why you're getting the information more on a daily basis as opposed to previously where it was like kind of every month we would have to manually update the website to get that information out there.
So then it's helpful for our staff because it does it seamlessly now. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. Hi, Crystal. Good to see you again. So just a quick question on this. So one, I'm glad it's rolled out. It's going to be hopefully a good tool. I'm sure it's going to create some more questions, as nature goes. But one of the questions I do have within there, are we able to identify what, I know we talked about vendors, but we could look at how much went to certain projects or, something to that effect.
So it depends on how you set it up. And the way that we have it set up right now is that you could break it out by department, and then you can also
buckets,
like by line item, but you wouldn't be able to identify, for example, like a particular CIP project. That would be something that we would have to add to it, to the website. And so those are the kind of things that as we roll this out, I'm sure there's going to be more feedback that we receive. And so you kind of think of this as like relaunch, I guess, 1.0. And then as we get more feedback, we're going to end up updating the website based off of that feedback and the information that our residents are looking for.
So right now, let's say, using that as an example, if that information isn't available in the platform as of yet, where would they go, or where could we direct them to find out the information? What would be the optimal, relative accurate source to get how much we spent on different, what I just call buckets or projects?
So for this would be the operating budget. I mean, for CIP projects, I don't believe we have anything that's real time like this would be. If you wanted to see how projects, I guess how much has been spent for a particular CIP project, then I believe it's the quarterly CIP reports that get produced. I'm going to kind of look back at our Public Works Director. I believe there's the quarterly CIP reports. If you wanted to track spending by project and that progress, then that's a report that they publish.
And what about programs?
So if it's part of the operating budget, you'll be able to find it in here.
Okay.
And so if you have questions about a particular, like for Parks and Rec, you'd be able to see how much is spent in Parks and Rec in those different categories like salaries and benefits. I want to say that for particular divisions within Parks and Rec, the program isn't that detailed yet. So that would be one of those where we would have to add it in as if you wanted to track it by, like Parks and Rec gymnastics, how much is being spent there, then that would be something that we would have to add, because I think it's Parks and Rec, and then you get to drill down further to salaries and benefits versus service and supplies and how it's funded, but not by the individual program quite yet.
I think it's great, and I'm excited about it. So thank you guys for putting this together.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for getting this going and getting it working. As you know, I like my spreadsheets and data and all that stuff, but when I'm talking to other people in the public or trying to explain something, I'm talking constituent, being able to pull it up and show them something very quickly in terms of percentages and dollars and show them how to use it, I think it'd be very useful for the public at large, being able to see what we're doing.
Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back, and thank you very much, and look forward to kicking the tires on 1.0 and where it's going to go from here, so appreciate it. All right. Reports of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple updates tonight. Parks and Recreation over the weekend held their Vacacon event. It was the first year that it was 2 days. It was a huge success, very family-friendly event. If you haven't attended, I encourage you to attend next year. Staff are still recovering, and we are working on a video for you that we'll have in the future. Going to pull up a slide here. We want to let everyone know that the Jepson Parkway Phase 2 project is set to begin construction on Monday, April 29th. The project includes the widening of Leisuretown Road from its current 2-lane configuration to a 4 lanes, with signals installed in the intersections at Ulatis and Leisuretown Road and Stonegate and Leisuretown Road. The city has sent out mailers to over 5,000 residents along the Leisuretown corridor, as well as visited businesses throughout the planned construction area. Work will begin at the intersection of Leisuretown and Elmira. And all project-related updates can be found on the city's website at CityofVacaville.gov/Jepson. It's here on the screen as well. And then any project inquiries can also be sent to Jepson@CityofVacaville.com, and our outreach team will be sure to get back to you or the residents that might have questions. And then our next item, Angelina's not going to hit next yet, but we did have our 6th COV Connect, Let's Make a Difference Day on April 13th. It was a cold and very wet day. Some of you were out there with us. We still had, despite the weather, 88 volunteers show up to clean yards, move appliances, build fences, lay sod, and plant plants at 18 houses on Mono Drive. It was really a great morning, even though it was wet and cold. We had ponchos. Jill Childer, your fire marshal, really spearheads this effort with her team, and it was great to see people out supporting their community and showing this neighborhood some love. And we don't have all the stats yet, but we do have a brief video that highlights the event. Oh, we don't have sound. Can we stop it and get Corey, can you help us with sound? Mike, Corey.
It's always a technical difficulty, isn't it? Sounds like my office.
Corey, Mike.
Well, maybe what we can do, we can come back to this.
Sure.
Yeah, before we close, we'll show it. How about that? So we'll give you a little bit of reprieve. We'll move on to council comments. Councilmember Silva.
Yeah, so it's kind of stemming off of city manager's, assistant city manager's report. It's not your city manager today. All right, Vacacon was, I really appreciate that being 2 days. I think that's excellent opportunity for more folks to access it. You know, on social media, you see more people ask, "What's Vacaville? What's," you know?" So that was cool. I think bringing out, you know, more notable names, you know, that stirs some excitement. We've seen that from our library, Danny Trejo. So, a library bringing out Danny Trejo. That was interesting and pretty insightful. So, I know that's not within our jurisdiction, but it just represents how, you know, people get excited and that, you know, they have something to learn from somebody who they may identify with from their work. So, but I think VacaCon is, you know, is something that's unique. I always get a kick out of all the creativity from the costumes that are developed. So I appreciate that. So appreciate everybody who helped organize it, all the community members that came out, all the vendors that came out. I thought it was pretty cool. Disclaimer, my kids love dressing up. So my little one really wanted to wear his costume, so he did. The Make a Difference Day, I'm gonna kind of connect that with Earth Day as well. So, you know, once again, it's not, you know, if you stick around and talk to neighbors afterwards long enough, they just take a step back and just amazed that people actually donate and come out and dedicate time and resources to help them out or help out their neighbors when they're limited in their abilities and access to do that. And some folks have, you know, lived their whole lives. They accumulate, you know, a lot of stuff. So a special shout out to all the youth, particularly Police Activities League. They roll deep every time. Earth Day as well on Rocky Hill Trail. Obviously, rain or shine, they're out there, as well as the cadets, the fire department Explorer program. There was one gentleman I met from the fire academy. He was in Army, or he was in Army. That's all I know. I don't want to get his name wrong. But very professional, very impressed with all those young folks. It's very inspiring. But even had some folks reach out again, just expressing their gratitude. So I'm going to go through some other quick things. Just announcements, May 7th. So Tuesday, May 7th, there's at Solano Community College at the Vacaville campus. There's an open house. So a lot of different faculty will be there along with their students from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., allowing a lot of different hands-on opportunities to anything to do with math and science. So the first time we did it was last year. It was pretty cool. So definitely recommend folks to come out and check it out. And if you want to learn more about biotech, since that came up, you're not able to attend the events this week, that's a perfect time. So a couple entrepreneurship, I mentioned it in another item earlier, but entrepreneurship, particularly with our youth, Lemonade Day is coming up. That's something that we as council have all continued to support. So that if you're interested in getting your kid involved in Lemonade Day, there's a little coursework you have to take, teaches them about how to run a business, and when it comes down to it, they put it out. So hopefully those that are wanting to invest in the development of our youth and those entrepreneurial aspirations, please participate in purchasing a cup of lemonade or whatever they're trying to hustle you for. So same thing, farmers markets opening up, different opportunities out there. A lot of folks talk about wanting more things in their community. Well, small businesses are dependent on you. So they need you to show up. They need you to attend not just events, but, you know, find ways to support their endeavors, you know, when as you can, right? I know times are tough for everybody. Relay for Life, a local group, once again, is organizing that. So that's May 4th. And that'll be at Andrews Park. I know some of my council members will be out there for that. And I just want to, you know, cancer, I think is part of everybody's family, everybody's experience, if not within their own family or themselves, loved ones. Some of us got a special friend recently diagnosed with breast cancer, is going under surgery on the 25th. So I just want to extend my love out to her and her family and show my support and your ability to continue to fight to get through that. So that's not just to our good friend Jeannie, but to anybody out there that has survived or currently fighting for their lives. Thank you.
Councilmember Wiley.
I have a few things that I did in the last 2 weeks that were very interesting, and one of them was the cleanup. So it was cold and wet, but we did a good job, I thought. Today, I drove around Meadowlands Park because that was one of the consent things, and I just wanted to see people using the park and see the new improvements. So it was really great that people I talked to were happy to be there. However, the reason that they were at Meadowlands Park to swing was because the swings were broken in their park. And I said, yes, there's a limited amount. We hope to get to Southwood Park and other parks as well, but at least we were able to have that park open. So we just have a lot of needs in our parks, but I'm really happy that we did get Meadowlands Park approved, and it was being well utilized today. And this weekend, we had the District 6 Spruce Up Day, and it was the 3rd annual Spruce Up Day. We had over 50 volunteers, and including our Community Development Director, Erin Morris, and we had a few other city employees from the city manager's office, and Vacaville was there. Vacaville was there last year too, and they worked for 2 whole shifts, which is 4 hours, and it was great. And people in the community said, oh, I didn't know, tell me about Vacaville. So we had great volunteers, and together, we filled 15 of those huge debris bins. We had 5 bins, but we emptied and folded, which was like over 58,000 pounds, which is 30 tons worth of stuff that we removed from District 6. But if there was something good, we set it beside the bin, and some people went home with new chairs, some people went home with new lawn furniture, people went home with a lot of new stuff that was still usable that got a new home during our day. And Recology did a wonderful job. They were out there the whole time making sure that everything was going smoothly. So that was a great event. And then last Sunday, I was really happy to be part, let me say one more thing about Spruce Up. Earlier, we had a proclamation about small businesses, and there's a small business in District 6 called Holy Mo's. It has a hot dog cart. So Holy Mo's was paid with our district dollars to have lunch for the people who were dropping off their things and the volunteers and the families. So it was a really wonderful event for everyone in District 6. And we should have a 4th one next year, although some people were wanting one next month. We said, no, next year we'll see you again. And then the last thing I just wanted to say was last Sunday, with the older Americans proclamation was do something new. So last Sunday I went to the girls' fire camp that was put on with Vacaville and Fairfield fire departments. And it was at the training facility in Fairfield. And there were about 50 high school girls there to find out over 2 days, all day Saturday and all day Sunday, about what it takes to be a fighter, a paramedic. And there was all these different stations that they could go to. So it was really interesting. And I talked at length with 2 of our wonderful firefighters, paramedics, Courtney Hughes and Mindy Simpson. And there were people that came from Washington State. There were people firefighters, women, that came from Washington State, that came from Connecticut, because they wanted to be part of that whole presentation for the girls. So it was really empowering to the women, and just a wonderful example of the great firefighting women that we have in the area. But as an older American, they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to climb the aerial ladder. So I got to climb the aerial ladder to the top of the tower. So I'm continuing to learn in my old age. So that's my report for tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Chapman.
Thank you. I couldn't believe it when Councilmember Wiley shared that story with me about climbing that ladder. And I have a phobia of heights. However, okay, we had the City Leaders Summit last week. The 2 of us traveled together. We did something unusual. The report, the update that Nancy had sent out had made mention of parking and transportation and the distance of the train station from the convention center. And so I had an aha moment. So I checked with the Capitol Corridor schedule, learned that we could catch it here in Fairfield at our station, and we would end up 1 mile from the convention center. So together we rode the train to the, and it was so relaxing. Oh my gosh. Just think, oh my gosh, we enjoyed that trip. That was quality time spent, to the point that as we were debarred, after we had gotten off the train on Friday, I had mentioned, and we got to brainstorming about the exposure for some of our children here our youth here in Vacaville, to give them, they don't have the field trips like they did years back. And there's a lot that they could learn and the experience that they would encounter. I mean, it needs more thought put into it, but I can see the benefits of arranging some sort of trip. They have group rates, maybe we can get a class. So anyway, I'm not going to go any further with that. Just a good thought. At the summit, there was a presentation on homelessness that was done by our a member of our board of supervisors, Mitch, and the mayor of Suisun, Elma Hernandez. After the presentation, it was a very in-depth presentation. I was taking notes. So anyway, I was speaking with Elma, and she was saying, it may be good that they make that presentation to the cities, to the councils here locally throughout within the county. And so I think that's something they're going to look into.
And I'll just add, there will be a presentation in July.
Oh, in July, great, okay.
And an update for the whole council.
Okay, wonderful.
You have a good thought.
Thanks. And then lastly, I want to make mention that I did attend Bob Howell's funeral yesterday. The community came out, our firefighter, the firefighting department, staff, everyone, thank you very much. They showed up and showed out. I mean, they really took care of the community and gave him his worth, his due. If you didn't know Bob, I'm sure many of you had met him. If you hadn't, a wonderful person, a great person that gave an awful lot, not only here locally, but to the county and probably beyond. He was a music man. I met Bob when I was on the K-12 Board of Education. His wife worked for the school district. And so that's how we befriend one another. Just a lovely person. His heart was in the right place. It was nothing he wouldn't have done, and so creative, just a wonderful person. So just want to express my appreciation to our fire department. They really gave support to the family. A great send-off. That's all I have.
Councilmember Roberts.
I'll keep it short since Councilmember Silva covered like 75% of the stuff that's going on in the city in the next couple weeks. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate, FactCon's a great thing. I know people talk about the different VIPs that show up and do the panels, but one of the biggest things there is they call it Artist Alley or Creator Alley, where, yes, just local people show up with their artwork that they made, different products that they made, vendors, memorabilia collectors selling some of the stuff they had. I found something, I was just randomly browsing through, and being an 80s kid, I was just looking at some comic books. I happened to find like issue #1 of Thundercats from 1985. I was like, I ended up buying it because it's like nostalgia. That's one of my big favorite things. But you don't know what you're going to find until you go through and look at it. But it supports all these local businesses in the area. I mean, some from Vacaville, but just a greater Bay Area, Sacramento region. And it helps them come back next year to bring more of that stuff, and the kids enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy it. Councilmember Silva, myself, and former Councilmember Sullivan, we dressed up a couple years ago to judge the cosplay contest. But yeah, and it's expanded out 2 days because it got big enough where they couldn't contain it all in one day. So that's definitely good for the area. And then all the food trucks. Another thing is yesterday I held a Veterans Town Hall meeting just right across the street, discussing the services, both the pros and cons of what's going on at the county level, and got a lot of good feedback. We had 23 people show up, which was for a semi-short notice town hall. That was more than I expected. I was really happy with the turnout. I got some great feedback, and not just complaints, but also ways to improve, like some suggestions on that I can bring to the county and to the mayor to help discuss to serve the veterans better in the community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you. I won't repeat anything. Lots of good stuff happening, and it's not surprising for Vacaville. I wanted to mention the Vacaville Police Foundation held its first fundraiser, a murder mystery dinner at the Vacaville Opera House. It was a huge success, and I believe they raised over $30,000 in one night. So it's just extremely exciting to see an organization that's really willing to kind of stand in the gap to help with some of those things that the police department needs. But that being said, I was wondering if I might be able to ask our chief to maybe arrange for this foundation to provide some sort of quick introduction about the Vacaville Police Foundation and why they exist, and to tell the council just a little bit more about the gap that they fill for us. Because I was just overwhelmed with the amount of support that was in that at that event to really try to make an impact on helping our police folks protect our quality of life here in Vacaville. So if we could arrange that, that would be awesome. And then the last thing, not to reiterate, is just I really think it's distracting the HVAC. And I don't know if my colleagues are having the same issue with me, but I'm struggling to hear. I can hear, but I'm struggling to hear. So.
We'll have it worked on, because sometimes in this part of the old building, there's certain diverters that when they're diverting it, you can't hear anything else. Trust me, my office has done that on occasion. They fixed it.
Okay, wonderful.
We'll get it fixed for you.
We can get that fixed. That would be outstanding, so I can hear everybody's comments just a little clearer. That's it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Ritchie.
So my voice is starting to lose it, but don't want to talk too much about, I wanted to also talk about when we went to VacaCon. It was an amazing event, and I had a chance to talk to a lot of people. I've been going with my kids since it was at the Moose Lodge, and it has grown and grown, and what it's become is something amazing. And so it's definitely something that the community is really embracing, and it's coming outside the community. I saw an officer I knew from San Quentin Prison there with his whole family, and it's some people are traveling to Vacaville to come to this thing, and now there's offshoots. There's downtown got activated. You're seeing businesses start to play into the kind of weekend of kind of anime and con stuff. It was pretty cool. I was able to get out of there safely with only a few things: Pokemon cards and a Hello Kitty pocket knife for my daughter. So it's like she wanted a sword, but that wasn't going to work out. But I mean, I felt like I won with those two things. I also had a chance to literally right after Jeanette left that event, I had a chance to go take my daughter to the Vacaville Fairfield joint fire event at camp. So my daughter is 11. She's not old enough to go yet. But having her see all these young women and then their leaders and their coaches that are actually active firefighters were all over, it was amazing. It was amazing to watch my daughter. She was nervous but excited, and watching girls just a few years older than her just really take charge. And it was something that I really wish a lot of young ladies can experience, to see that there is women in the fire service. I found out by 2.8%. But man, the energy and just professionalism and this unity they had at that event, which should inspire all women to see that even though they're 2% of something, they have a huge impact. And it was really impactful for my daughter. So I would love to support that, to find out how can we get more young ladies to go and experience that so they can see what public service can be. And yes, they will be the super minority, but they can really make a big impact. And so that was my highlight for the last 2 weeks. Is really just going to take my daughter there and watching her eyes light up and seeing other women that are strong-willed and strong make a difference. So thank you for putting that on.
Thank you. Three quick things. An update. For the next 3 days, our very own Justin Cole is going to be up in Sacramento attending the State Water Resource Control Board workshops. There's not going to be any votes. No action to be taken, but there's going to be several presentations, and there's going to be a combination of comments that will be coming from Solano County, the City of Vacaville, and SQUAF to address the 55% unimpaired flow that we are definitely opposed to, and we have a better option. And so no action will come out of the next 3 days except for they're going to get an earful, and that's the intent. So there's several sessions, and they are available to watch online. So for anyone who's interested, it starts tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. It goes through several sessions, all 3 days, and then there's comments that are available for people to make comment. And we, for certain, are going to make sure those comments are reflective of the city's position, which is definitely opposed to anything that's going to harm our water. So that's the next 3 days. Also, something that has been important we talk about land use and development, long time coming. There's going to be a groundbreaking event at Lagoon Valley this Friday at 2 o'clock. And so it's been a long time coming for this development, nearly 3 decades after its initial vision. While there was a lot of resistance, what's coming is the first phase of this that will be about 400 acres of development. But just imagine the neighborhoods having access to swim and sports club, 18-hole championship golf course designed by Robert Trent Jones, and ultimately a 5-acre organic farm and retail businesses. This is part of how we develop in a very smart way. And I've heard comments like, okay, well, we never wanted this because this is our Lagoon Valley, but here we are. And I do believe that the master plan development is going to be something that is going to be very beneficial to Vacaville, but that's this Friday. And lastly is the BU event. It's an event on Sunday, April 28th from 1 to 4 at Play for All Park. It's an event for special needs awareness. Please come out. It's going to be a very exciting time, and it's good for our community. So that's all that I have. I know that we have closed session. There's nothing to report out. But before we end, we might have a video.
Sometimes people just need help, and that's what we're here to do today.
Here with 9 of my department to help make this neighborhood better in the rain. It's been just an amazing day, and I'm so glad everyone is here.
Let's make a difference.
Hagamos una diferencia.
We're about communities. We have our own culture that we try to bring to it, but we're all about getting out in our community, helping out, whether disasters or being out here on a rainy day.
Let's make a difference.
Let's make a difference.
Let's make a difference.
Wow. And again, thanks to everyone who helped make that possible, and also the video. So with that, as I said, we're going into closed session, and there'll be nothing to report out. So good night, Vacaville.